Okay, sweet. Let's just jump straight into it then. Do it a cold start. Now we're gonna do the yo start because I haven't done it in a few weeks. We are number 131. Sweet.
Damn. Plowing through the podcast. Well, sorry. Yeah.
No, dude, it's all good. It's all good. I will take a compliment, sir. Thank you. I'm trying to really get back into, week and week episodes. I sat last night after I gave up fucking writing for hours, just on my phone. I'm gonna message loads of people, and I got some wicked responses from people that I was like, these guys are not gonna even know who I am, and they were like, I love your shit, would love to come on, and I'm like, hell yeah. So,
Oh, nice.
so yeah,
You'll be the most recognized man in cannabis soon enough, Simpa. So
Most avoided maybe for a lot of people because you know me, I like to get maybe a bit too controversially to the point
someone's
and
going
to
to
the
challenge my
truth.
views. Oh my God, I can't speak to
Well, yeah, come on for a debate. Anybody, anywhere, from anywhere. Let's have a debate and a discussion. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be humbled, humiliated, embarrassed. So yeah, yeah. All right, you just helped me there. I'm gonna cut that into my cold opener, and then we're gonna go
that.
straight into. Yo, how's it going, folks? Welcome to episode 131 of the Simpa Life Podcast. Hope you're keeping well. Is it the first of the year? I don't know, you just confused me now, Chris. Is it the first of the
Seems
year?
like it.
Technically,
Let's go with first.
no, I had Captain fucking Hooter on last week. I think that was technically recorded it was because I said Happy New Year last week, folks. See, I'm not saying that cannabis affects short-term memory, but yeah, last week, those whole 7 days ago, yeah, I do remember saying Happy New Year. We'll say it again. I'll say it and wish a Happy New Year to my guest today, who I'm going to jump in and introduce because I've not really got much shit to say. We've got more to converse between ourselves here, so I'm not going to chat shit to you, fine folk. You can just sit back, buckle in, and enjoy what is to come, which is a third-time conversation with the man himself, who is the founder of the CEO of Global Cannabinoid Solutions, the UK's first cannabis science firm, host of the Cannaman Podcast, which has got a new episode out today, folks, or recently, I suppose, whenever you're watching this. Any minute now. And author of the Canna Manual, which you can also check out in links below if YouTube are not currently still threatening me because of the content of the links that I'm putting in my bios. They are, without further ado, Chris Tasker. How are you doing, brother?
Beautiful. Thank you, Simpa. Lovely to see you. Thank you for squeezing me into your busy podcast schedule as well. And Happy New Year. Lovely to see you,
brother. Likewise. I'm a wee bit over caffeinated. I've just realised once I realised the camera was live and the performance begins. Yeah, I'm a bit caffeined up the eyeballs, so we're gonna balance this out. We're gonna have a nice smoke. We're gonna have a nice conversation, sir. Probably gonna end up in the realms of conspiracies and aliens. And nah, I'm kidding. We're gonna end up with some hardcore science, and we're gonna put the world to rights, my friend. So yeah, what have you been up to? It's been I think May 2022 since we last spoke. I said publicly, of course, last spoke on this platform.
Good question, Simpa. I forget how quickly time flies and how much goes on within a space of a year, really. What's been going on at GCS? Well, we've been very busy digitizing as much of our knowledge as possible. So, unfortunately, because of cannabis prohibition, there's very few cannabinoid researchers in the world, it seems like. And so accessing that science, those facts, that impartial information does become quite a challenge for the public, for businesses, investors, everyone in between. And so because there's so few of us, we've been digitizing as much of that knowledge as possible so that it's all accessible, everyone can find it when they need it. And so that's taken up a good portion of last year to call my life and soul and energy. But now we thankfully have a whole bunch of free educational resources for everyone. So everyone listening, we have a lovely little program called Green Shield, where I always bounce off Simpa, which is our 50 years of cannabis science in 50 minutes. So it's 3 sections of 15-minute intros into cannabis science, all the history, what's gone on over the last 50 years, 80 years even now of cannabis research plus. Everything to do with the law, what you should know about policing, employment, work, how it's going to affect your driving. things like that. And then also how to stay safe, how to consume cannabis responsibly, safely, how to avoid damaging yourself and accidentally doing harm, or for your friends, nephews, aunties, uncles, hurting themselves along the way. And so we had a super time at Product Earth as well, didn't we, Simpa? We had lots of very lovely food, lots of very lovely conversations. And I don't know about you, but I was come away sort of overwhelmed and knackered and fatigued after speaking to so many people, because I spend so little time in social settings, really. I'm usually at work at my desk, and then to see and speak with 1,500 people all in the space of a weekend is a super sensory overload. So
it's
excited for that again this year. That'll be a super little excursion and a nice little expo down in London this year as well.
Yes, yes. I was just gonna comment there. I am waiting to speak to Matthew later on this week, and I'm gonna voice the same thing that I've voiced for the past 5 or 6 years now, but it has become ever more poignant this year. Product North.
Oh,
you know, HS2 is they're abandoning us. They're not going to build this high-speed link. You know what we can build? A highway between the north and the south. We can revitalize these industries. I mean, most of the good weed in the south is grown in the north. We know this. But yeah, I personally think that's where we should be pitching this. You know what I mean? Before it used to be central of the country. Yes, I understand that if you're London centric, that is in another country. But for the rest of the UK, where the majority of the population lives, you know, that's where we were happy with. But I can understand the means and the reasons for taking on the space. I understand it being in a new venue in its location, and yeah, I'm gonna have obviously all this conversation publicly at some point with Matt when we bring him on and we hold him to the coals, because I love him and Product Earth is my spiritual home. But yeah, likewise, I think because it's so overwhelming, you have a year's worth of conversation in a few days, that it almost calls to the need to do this every 6 months. And yeah, what better way to do it than one in the north, one in the south? I mean, my idea would be do it once every fucking quarter with the seasons, and basically go for each of the devolved kingdoms. You know, there's a lot the Northern Ireland has got to give. There's a hell of a lot the Welsh have got to give to the cannabis scene. The Scottish, you know, we have to, I think, look at this beyond just moving it, because I feel I'm scared that once the industry gets trapped in London, it won't leave. It won't step out again, because that's where all that money is, you know?
We'll northernize it, I'm sure, at some point, Simpa, and put
Yeah.
our northern mark on it, and the northern charm and the northern hospitality as well. Which
If not, we'll continue to do it. And who knows?
exactly.
We may end up building Hadrian's Wall 2.0 out of concrete to divide the north and the south. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? Excellent though. Green Shield. I again should, in fact, folks, you can just check out the Simpa Life, because by the time this comes out, I should have included the link below via the Simpa Life website. I mean, you can check out obviously Global Cannabinoid Solutions. If the link isn't there, it's because I'm still on probation with YouTube. Because I dared to link a website for a man who does some incredible work testing tens of thousands of drug samples, you know, saving thousands of lives. And YouTube just, you know, that's me promoting drug use, and yeah, fucking terms of service violation, my arse. So you can see why these episodes are quite limited on this platform, but we're still going to keep having these conversations.
Maybe time for Rumble, Simpa.
I am looking at this. I do have one of my, in fact, is it this one? Hey, it is this one. I have a notepad full of notes on live streaming and
cool.
building very different things using like Restream and whatever else. And it is something I want to do, because I think I want to reach more people, not for the vanity or the ego of such a thing, but of the means to get people to connect with people like yourself, to broaden their horizons, to not just see what, you know, the mainstream media and the legacy moguls are perpetuating to them as knowledge and as, you know, pre-packaged, sanitized culture, you know, big air quotes culture.
Very commendable though, Simpa, and who knows, with time, as the laws change, it could relax a little bit on the platform and maybe become a little bit more open-minded around some of the harm reduction stuff, and putting health first. for a change. We'll see. But,
Yeah.
fingers crossed for us anyway.
This
I'm
this
sure.
is putting my health first. This is therapy. This is therapy. You people ain't getting paid. You know, do you know how much it would cost therapy wise for me to actually talk about this shit and another human to sit for a couple of hours each week and go, fuck me, this kid again. Right, so what's bad this week? What's got to do with the Romans? What's this got to do with this? What's this? Oh, do you know what I mean? This is free. This is wonderful. This is an organic environment in which I can flourish. Obviously, yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying. Sometimes to my detriment, but I still believe that honesty will transform the world, man. And these kind of conversations, for all sometimes slightly manic, are yeah, meaningful and are a means by which we can, you know, at least have the illusion amongst ourselves for a couple of hours each week that we're doing something. I jest, obviously. I think we are doing something. I think it's self-evident as to where we're moving. So yeah, I think it's great that you are providing this education and making it as open source and as accessible as possible, given the, as we were discussing in the preamble, the kind of propensity of a capitalist system to monopolize and monetize and commercialize information and data and knowledge. And I think, as I've just sort of alluded to, if we can create a transparency there, if we can create a much more open discourse, we will change the fucking world. I don't know what it will look like, but I guarantee you it will be better than the current paradigm we have right now.
Well, that's the goal, isn't it? Make the world a better place and make it better for the people within it. So, yeah, it's very commendable. Over 130 episodes, Simpa. Very impressive. That's
what 131.
A lot of dedication and discipline to be able to put those out, and then also a lot of how many people. If we go through your views, Simpa, I wonder how many people you've informed through your videos as well. So,
quite a lot. Yeah,
yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. I do. Yeah, it's not about, for me, I guess, the numbers, let's say the vanity of it, or it's nice to obviously see that it be a progression and an escalation. Obviously, I've started doing some shorts and clips. Much of your behest, you know, you've been telling me for about fucking 24, 30 months to do so. And yeah, slowly riding that wave. I am noticing an increase in traffic, and it's just sort of difficult to, the way that I naturally work. It feels so vain and egoic to be like, oh, I want to think of this and promote this, and because this will get me more traction, this will get me, do you know what I mean? And it's like, I want the conversation, I get my little bit of therapy on this end, and I know that what we've put out somewhere in that amble of waffling, there will be righteous information, there will be, you know, inspiration for others to actually, you know, have these jumping off points and go and do their own shit. You know, I'm not going to sit here and give like an academic lecture. That's not the format I've gone for here. This is as raw and as honest and as open as I can be. I'm a little bit manic. I'm a little bit, you know, crazy at times. I'm a little bit depressive and withdrawn at times. I'm a bit loquacious and
personality, Simpa. You've got character. That's what it's all about.
Indeed,
You're
indeed.
human.
Exactly. And if I can't anywhere else, like I said, at least for a few hours a week, I can sit in this little room and talk shit to you, to the fine folk out there, in a way that is, I like to think and feel, is authentic. So yeah, here's to 131 more.
Well, dude, yeah, 500,000. Who knows where you'll be by then? But let's say, Simpa, if you weren't doing the conversations, you weren't asking the questions, if you weren't putting it all out there, no one would know half of what's going on. And yeah, it'd all just be happening in private, behind closed doors, and people would just get sort of secondhand whispers or information from people rather than actually getting to sit and speak to the people that you speak to, and 100 different experts across the field of cannabis. So yeah, unveiling the realities of the sector rather than sort of the marketing information that everyone gets and that everyone's quite comfortable with at the moment. And
exactly. And that's the excuse that I will always use as to why this podcast isn't so polished and so refined. It's like, nah, it doesn't want to be. I'm not trying to market nothing. I'm not trying to sell you nothing. I'm trying to sell you the idea of thinking for yourselves, which, if you happen to think for yourself that, hey, this podcast is shit, you don't want to listen to me anymore, I support that. It's your prerogative. You go out and you fucking do you. I am proud of you. I'll miss you. Goodbye. But do you know what I mean? It's I don't want for the sake of wanting. I want for a better world, and I cannot tell you what that is. I can just sit here each week and hope that by having these different conversations with different people, like you say, you can go, oh, have you spoken to this guy? Oh, you really need to meet her. You need to, and together we're slowly filling in that network. We're mapping this unknown space where we can, build the foundations of hopefully a better future, one where we all benefit from it, not just a continuation of the same sort of like distilling of hegemonic power into the smaller and smaller groups, and then the mass majority of people just being beguiled and lost to its tricks. You know what I mean? It just I see too much of the you can't really call them a mainstream podcast. Feels like a bit of an oxymoron, but I guess, but maybe so these days.
Well, they are the new media now, aren't they? Really,
I suppose you've got
independent large podcasts are getting more views and attention than the mainstream news, so they are almost mainstream.
The weight that those air quotations are carrying in independent there is huge. The sheer number of former politicians and various of the established figures from the UK have now got these, again, air quote, successful podcasts, because most of it is farmed traffic. It's the same with a lot of their books. They buy back their own books to get themselves on lists and various other things to appear successful, so then they can travel around the world and go, oh, I need 100 grand to speak at your dinner. And it becomes this ever giant circle jerk of fucking corruption and cronyism,
You're giving away all my book secrets, all my sales.
No, again, if the link is available below, if I haven't got another warning from YouTube, check out the Canna Manual. Some really good information and a good spectral, full spectrum. Sorry, to borrow a phrase. Introduction into sort of what cannabis is.
That's going on, the bizarre little cannabis bubble that we find ourselves in.
Well, from a scientific point of view, in terms of the interpersonal politics, I've been trying, I've been speaking to a lot of people and spent many years in this space, and none of us still have a clue what the fuck is going on. We have some rough ideas. We've got some stuff under some rocks over here. We've got some things hidden away over there. And yeah, people are trying to figure out what's going down, but yeah, focus on the fucking science. What is it McKenna says? Trust plants, not fucking gurus. And I think the same is trust science, not scientists. No offense, Chris.
100%. I think that's why we get along though, Simpa. We all want more autonomy. We all want more knowledge sharing, more access to information and freedom around that information. So long may it continue. How are your plans for this year, Simpa? Have you got any more events on your horizon that you want to go and visit? Are there any
I'm looking at
hunting down? You mentioned some comedians as well and different
I'm not
artists and creators.
I am not gonna name the comedian, but it now in 2024 I think marks the third year of us back and forthing, and every now and then just still sort of respond, well, we're not right now, I'm in this tour, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And there's a lot of people now that obviously this podcast has been going a good few years now, that I started contacting early days, that I'm still chasing now, and as the numbers increase and as the different guests, they had that person on, it kind of increases their likelihood or whatever. But I'm still just trying to spin these fucking plates of various different people. So many people that have committed, like Christ, this time last year to coming on the podcast. And I think you find yourself in the hot seat this week, not because of not wanting to speak to you, but because of one of these guests dropping out. So I'm going to keep persisting, as always. I'm going to keep moving forward with it and trying to branch out into different areas. Because as I've said, this is the Simpa Life. I don't want to get too pigeonholed and typecast, as it were, as just a cannabis podcast for all, obviously, yeah. I mean, as part of the show, I'll smoke 2 joints or Clover cigarettes, I think Bill Maher says, to keep his YouTube channel from fucking getting sanctioned on YouTube. Fucking dickhead. Yeah, so gonna keep.
Maybe we should start some YouTube controversy, Simpa, and start going after some of the big boys, giving them some stick.
You know me. For all I get painted as potentially someone that is controversial, confrontational, and contentious, I'm quite a humble and quiet guy. I know a lot of things. I know a lot of things. And I say that because, but I wouldn't want to harm people necessarily. I would believe in justice, but I also am aware that I am not Judge Dredd. I am not in a capacity or capability to pass judgment on people for the things that I know. I am not either then going to hold people hostage to the things that I know either. People make mistakes and whatever else. But over the fucking years that I've been in this space, I have acquired and accrued a lot of information and knowledge and know a lot of fucking things. And I've forgotten most of these things, thankfully, I'm sure most people will be grateful for, or rather put them away on a shelf until a moment where my brain goes, oh, here you go, here's remember this. So it's yeah, I don't want to kick a hornet's nest, but there does seem to be an ever-growing class divide between the organic, somewhat, let's call it authentic, representations and emergent manifestations of the cannabis culture versus some of these pre-established brands and the venture capital money that can just land somewhere and be unrestricted. I think if might get in trouble for this. I think it will have what's happened to High Times since it's been taken over by a holdings company, and its ability to spread and to promote and to move into different areas. And I think this is just representative of the same mechanism that is occurring in the rest of the industry, which you see with things like HHC, THCP, Delta 8, Delta 10, etc. The proliferation of these novel cannabinoids because they fall into quasi gray areas and loopholes that allow for profiteering from a certain section of society while this being predicated on the demonization and continued vilification of the legacy cannabis consumer and culture. Oh, have I muted you or have you muted yourself? You muted yourself.
I muted myself. Sorry, Simpa. Got excited.
Left you speechless.
It's interesting, isn't it? How when I say it's interesting, again, I thought that maybe I overestimated how good the cannabis industry would be in terms of just quality of characters, intentions of people, values, things like that. And I think we both see the same thing. It never ceases to disappoint us as to how many corners are cut, risks are taken.
Capitalists gonna capitalize, con men gonna con, and the opportunistic individuals are gonna jump on the next big thing. Do you know what I mean? I remember as a kid, do you remember, oh, what the hell were those bears called? Was it TY or something like that? They were the Beanie Babies. They were the TY bears or whatever they were. They were whatever the company.
Hearts on them that glowed.
Yeah, and they basically they were sold and marketed in the mid 90s as basically being like a collectible. It was a kid's toy, but it was the first kind of like it was like a physical NFT back in the, do you know what I mean? It was this idea that, oh, they're only going to make so many of these, or we only made 1,000 of this specific bear. And then so people collect them, keeping them in boxes and whatever else. And the market got massively over fucking inflated and it never amounted to shit. But then Pokemon cards that came along at a similar sort of time, some of the original ones of them in an open packs, you're talking fucking millions of dollars for single packets, millions of dollars for single cards and shit like that. And that was the analog version. Then we've had the fucking .com bubble that then once that reset into the modern, what we call Web 2.0, all of these people just trying to jump on the next big fucking thing, wanting to be there. Do you know what I mean? Not wanting to miss their opportunity. And so they're just jumping into all fucking sorts of things and they can actually see what is happening with cannabis. And a lot of these people that we see jumping in now, a lot of them are only becoming publicly facing now. They've always been there. The big boys with alcohol, 8 out, what was it?
Backhoe. Yeah.
Like 7 or 8, I can't pull the stat out of my head. I think it's 7 or 8 out of 10 of the alcohol companies within, what was it, the first 2 years of the passing of the OG legalizations in 2012 in Washington and Colorado, put investment money straight in. Like they'd backhanded it. If you now look, like Colorado, I think hosts America's largest beer festival. And if you look at the connection of what's happening with states with cannabis and alcohol and the causement of these industries and how they're starting to diverse and divest, a lot of the Canadian industry is moving into buying alcohol production and distribution. I think Tilray is one of the main ones that have moved into it. And so there's that kind of conglomeratization. But yeah, as you mentioned, tobacco, British American Tobacco, BAT, they have basically announced it in their portfolio 2 year, God, 2020. It always fucks me up when we move into a new year and my brain goes last year, this year. Do you know what I mean?
2023,
Yeah. So some point in not too recent times, they announced basically in their portfolio the idea of moving towards non-combustible, non-nicotine products.
Mm.
So, sorry, non-combustible and non-nicotine products. So, yes, and non-combustibles being, yeah, your nicotine vapes and those kind of vaporables, etc., and the non-nicotine products being cannabis via the same delivery mechanisms of mostly as well, single-use cartridges, etc.
Great consumer products. You got me thinking earlier on, Simpa, about we were talking about companies investing, people's perspectives on the cannabis industry. I've pulled up some of the stock market charts. If you fancy taking a look at some of to give people a bit of an overview, when Simpa and I met, we were it was probably about 6 years ago plus, maybe.
A bit more now.
Back then, there weren't any cannabis companies, and so everyone was very excited. There was lots of speculation. There was lots of investment money being raised, thrown in all sorts of different directions. And looking at the stock prices now, I can throw one up quickly, Simpa, to give everyone a bit of context. But it's almost, it's beyond comedic. It's in fact sad at this point now, bordering on criminal. Would you grant me access, kind Simpa, to be able to throw up a little image?
I shall, if you help me understand how the fuck I do it.
Oh, yeah. This is unfortunate.
Who can start? Wait, no, all participants. Is that in it?
Eesh. All right, let's have a look. I'm still disabled as a participant. Host disabled, participant screen sharing. You can give a bit of a verbal overview if you like, Simpa.
No, I don't know why it said that I've just
afterwards.
disabled it. Oh, I do love modern technology.
Zoom's got all these nice upgrades as well.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel very intuitive. Like, oh wait, no, that's a whiteboard. Apps, is it in apps? Who can start a collaboration? All participants. What the? Oh, wait, I've got it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Multiple participants. Has that done it? I think.
Hey, there we go.
Sweet.
Right. Prepare yourselves, dear viewers, for the most depressing looking stock charts that you've ever seen in your life. So here we have
Who are we starting with?
Aurora Cannabis, possibly the biggest cannabis company in the world in terms of share price. Well, initially share price, market value, assets under management, all those sorts of things. Interestingly, no revenue. So as a bit of a timeline, if we go back to 2017, 2016, this is when all of our lovely governments and politicians were changing their... Is that my cat?
I thought I heard a meow there. Not my cat.
Never mind. Nip that bit out there, Simpa. So if we cast our minds back to 2016, 2017, roughly when Simpa and I met, this was when all of the excitement, speculation, optimism was sort of filling the cannabis ecosystem, and the few people that were around then. There wasn't really an industry to talk of as such, but everyone had been looking at California, everyone had been looking at America very optimistically and very excitedly, slightly greedily perhaps as well. And so to zoom in a little bit, can you see this all right, Simpa?
Yeah, it's full screened across mine. Looks pretty good.
Magic. So share prices started at $4, $3, which is a fairly good time to buy a share, buy a stock. This isn't investment advice, of course, by the way, merely observations. And as the laws were changing and as the discussions were growing, this is when everyone thought that there would be federal legalization. Everyone thought there would be all 50 states legalized, 51, 52 states legalized. And then
this will be after Prop 64. California is, I think, is the main dip you're looking at there in November, because it'll be the election of because the American elections are always November, aren't they?
I believe so. So as you can see, quite optimistic growth from $4 up to 20. Pretty happy with the returns there. So I think we're now looking at around 2018, which was just after Trump got elected, if I'm right in thinking that, Simpa. And we got up to a share price of $130 for an Aurora stock. So if you got it at $4 and you got up to 130, 120, I think we even spiked up to 150 nearly. Great returns. And again, everyone thought that legalization was just around the corner for the United States, and so therefore the world would open up and cannabis would become more widely acceptable as a commodity. Since 2018, that obviously hasn't happened, and we've gone from a peak of $140, $150 per share down to now a grand total of 45 cents per share from $140, which is, well, if you're an investor, you'd be pretty unpleased with that. And also, if you're running the company, probably in a little bit of trouble financially.
Wow.
Lots of money is being raised by Aurora. There's been lots of different sort of stock splitting, share splitting,
buybacks, etc. I mean, Aurora,
buy-offs, everything that can be done.
Which is in.
Ultimately, yeah, we've ended up back down at 50 cents below where it even started. So in the last, let's say, 8 years, we've had a bit of a boom and bust in the cannabis industry right across the board. And this is really the same for most cannabis companies. We were just talking there about Tilray. Similarly, up to nearly, well, there was a spike, I believe, and it went up to $300 a share. Let me just move that out.
Well, yeah, Tilray is an interesting one. I mean, initially Aurora got caught up. I think if you actually look into your other figures as well from before, you'll probably see somewhere in the middle between the two first main spikes, I think, is the rumor of Aurora Tilray merger. Yeah, so the first spike, you've obviously got Canadian legalization coming into effect, sort of 2018. So that caused a massive spike across the board, especially in the Canadian companies, and especially the Canadian companies that were dual listed on both New York Stock Exchange and sort of the. What the hell's the Canadian one? Is it Toronto?
I think so.
Yeah, Toronto Stock Exchange.
October 18. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that obviously kind of fell through with Aurora. What did it was Euphoria or Fira and Tilray, I think, who ended up merging, and they became the new Tilray. But Tilray, so yeah, in its initial inception, obviously got a massive bump. That's, you got your merger news early on. Then you've got 2021 is where you've got your big jump up. Is it got caught up in the GameStop thing? Do you remember when
oh yeah,
Wall Street bets and
were
yeah, and they moved over, and for a few days they pumped Tilray right the fuck back up. Because yeah, the same with all
dollar up to 70 again,
and it was
now back down to 190.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're talking about health of an industry, that's not really what you
It
want to
was
see.
never about health of an industry. It was the same as like most things that become like unicorns, I suppose the new thing, which is $1 billion company, the new thing is like a decacorn, which is a $10 billion valuation. That's where they're looking for, because any fucker in Silicon Valley can apparently now throw together $1 billion company overnight, it would seem. Um, and it's about that. It's basically it's pump and dump. It's the initial Series A, Series B, Series C, and how far ever you want to go round and down with this. Investors, I mean, in the cannabis, we're yeah, Series 4, Series 5, however you want to categorize it down. We're moving, then still putting money back into the pile. And it's all based on speculation. You know, every time the Safe Banking Act, or when it became the Safer Banking Act, or any of these other legislations and acts of governance in the states sort of come up, the market moves a little bit, but the institutional investors, they're not interested in owning it, moving yet. They've bought back low, basically knowing which companies are going to rise and fall, because it's all, I don't know, allegedly insider trading, because ultimately they know what's going to happen. They knew as soon as all the IPOs, the initial portfolio offerings, come onto the market, the same months and weeks and year as Canadian legalization, a marketplace of like 80 odd million people, that on paper is going to look good for a few fucking years. So you pump, you dump, you come back in, and then you just you buy back at the lower rate.
Stuff
Wait,
cheaper
wait
again.
till it comes up, because you then go, oh, the quarterly profits will be out next week. We know that'll do this. I'll take my $5, whatever it was, it'll jump back to 20, and then just buy it down. And everyone else is looking at this that doesn't know cannabis, or that isn't in the inside of this controlled opposition, as it were, because frankly, that's what I fucking believe legalization to be, frankly, is a form of classist institutional protection of the economic hegemony and the continuation of the status quo. And that this is evident of that. A real healthy industry, as you say, would be a gradual, and actually, I would say a fucking, I can't remember the mathematical term for a longitudinal curve.
No.
It's an exponential growth, but there's a certain word for it. It's so long since I did fucking math. It is a formal education. But anyway, my point being is that you say it should be this thing, and it should look more like, as I've just written about recently in the Weed World magazine, an industrial revolution. It should look like an explosion of human productivity, ingenuity, and innovation. That's what cannabis can really be. I love it evidently as a drug, and it helps me therapeutically, lawfully, and as a prescription medicine. But it can do so much fucking more than this. It can do so much more than even the thousand things that I could sit here and list right now. We could really move forward, but this is evident that this isn't their intention. It's about market manipulation. It's about ensuring that, cannabis is legal. We don't need to do anything. And say, yeah, but you're still
Just grow weed.
producing all these fossil fuels. You're still producing all these plastics. You're still mining all of these fucking minerals. You're still doing things we don't need to do because cannabis can replace that shit. Sorry, I've hijacked your presentation
No,
there,
you
Chris. Where are
completely
we?
let it rip, Simpa. Reason
Yeah,
I
love
put
it.
these up was because I just wanted people to understand how the industry, or the biggest companies in the industry, have ended up operating, and what's gone wrong, what they could have done better maybe. A lot of them ended up very much just production focused, create as much cannabis as possible, pump out as many products as possible, and there wasn't much of a follow-up plan after that. And they ended up with very substantial market shares, but the actual utility of what they were producing was non-existent, essentially.
They were dominant. They were big fish in a little pond, and all they did was get so big, but they couldn't grow the pond, because it's not the same as anything else. It's not the Again, I've just watched It's a Wonderful Life because it's Christmas and it's tradition. Like the plastics boom in that, and George is offered, and you watch like this the industrial explosion because of the application of new plant polymers and derived plastic compounds. And that's that trajectory of whatever. But there wasn't a history and a culture of suppressed people that made plastic. Do you know what I mean? There isn't a people that are going to say fuck you, and a whole bunch of other people that are going to have in solidarity say fuck you for the people that you've been fucking. that did make sense, but was quite vulgar. But you get my point, though, is that because there is this suppressed class, frankly, the system you guys are going to have to create in order to appease me is going to have to be fucking spot on. You can't come in and Tesco value your way through this shit. No offense, Tesco. But you have to do this properly. You have to include our culture. You have to, represent us. It has to be for us, with us, or fuck you, we're not going to buy your shit. We're going to let you circle the drain.
And then most of the people ended up turning back to the black market anyway, or becoming self-reliant as it was. So, I mean, as you can see, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at any of the stock prices, things like that, but most industries don't follow that trend. We wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't have phones, we wouldn't have computers or technology if other companies and industries operated the way that the cannabis industry has.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, $550 a share down to $4 a share. There was talk at one point of Aurora being delisted because their share price was too low to even, it's meant to be above $1 for it to be listed on the stock exchange in the US anyway. And yeah, I mean, gosh, look at that. It's just been eviscerated.
It's insane.
Don't get me wrong, there's been some share splits and stock buybacks and liquidation of different share categories, but ultimately most of these companies haven't made money since they began, and all the money's being made in using investor funds to try and prop up the companies and pay back the old investors who invested in the company initially.
Well, it's
so
yeah,
unfortunate all around, and this is why I guess Simpa and I have been, well, we had a little complaint there at the start of the podcast.
Wait. Moi? Complain?
Forgive me.
No, I agree. And actually, I'm going to steal the screen a second to show you exactly proof of what you were just saying. Is that showing the right screen?
Oh, there we are. Yeah. Microsoft's a good example, simply.
Yeah, I'm just going to close these other things. Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. Was GameStop was the short squeeze. They got caught up in. And that was actually just me clarifying the Canadian date of legalization. But yeah, as you're saying here, this is, Microsoft. It doesn't drop. There isn't a point where it drops below its sort of initial value rate. It grows and it dips. It grows and it dips. You know what I mean? The same is true with Apple on its trajectory. Do you know what I mean? Christ, look at that.
I've lost you now.
Oh.
Oh, there we are.
On
your back.
Yeah, Samsung, another one again. Like the industries will dip and move, and most of these things that you're seeing actually a dip. These are general stock market drops. Do you know what I mean? These are not.
There's value to the company because it produces something of value to people. Whereas
exactly, it's not a shell to just hide some shit or go. Oh, it's literally like the shell game, but you saw them put X under there, and then they're telling you that there's 75 times whatever that is, and you go yes, and they give you more, and you bet more, and it's just this fucking
speculation.
But it's a con game when one side is fixed and it's rigged, and that's the problem. Is that a lot of other, for all I hate it, free market economic capitalist systems and models, and not half as restrained. They are not half as restricted and controlled. Yes, there is insider trading and various other things, but there is enough market variables to mean it is still a gamble for most industries. Whereas cannabis is so controlled and governed that despite anything I could say, and I'm going to continue to say it, anything that people like yourself can research, prove, define, and perpetuate, like get out there and promulgate to the people, they control the narrative. They control what cannabis is. They control how it's going to, operate and appear within the mainstream, if it is indeed to appear in the mainstream at all.
I was just looking at some of the headlines there, Simpa. A 99.5% decline in share price for most of the cannabis companies and for the industry as a whole. So
it's just all the hodlers left holding it.
Oh my goodness.
Hodlers,
yeah, some tragic stories here if you Google it. But also, silver lining, if you can raise that money and build such a grotesquely large organization with very little value underpinning the company, imagine what companies that are actually creating value, developing IP, creating assets and tools, and doing things that are valuable for society. Imagine how big those can be. So I think it reflects more the thought processes and decision-making patterns of those that are setting up those traditional cannabis companies and those sort of multinational cannabis companies. And if you contrast it to today, there's nothing medical's coming out of that, nothing scientifically advanced or innovative is coming out of those companies. It was just purely grow cannabis, sell cannabis, and become trillionaires in the process. And unfortunately, that business model no longer works for the cannabis industry as a whole. And a lot of companies are finding that out now, as we know, when it comes to earning profits and actually paying back their investors, paying off their creditors, everything in between. So
yeah, I think there's then done a lot of harm to getting that investment and moving things forward, because it just seemed like it was the loudest, frankly, as I'll say it, the loudest con men in the room that were able to convince the investors and the fucking shareholder class to come and back these projects. And all they did was just kind of infiltrate each other, and through espionage kind of go, well, they're doing this, well, we'll copy, and we'll do this, well, we'll copy. And so it just became this copy of a copy of a copy of a copy raced down to the bottom, because there was no real innovation. There was no representation of the cannabis culture. There was no genuine people with passion, with care, with 30, 40, 50 fucking years experience in those fucking rooms. It was no. You've got a criminal record. You're not allowed in there. You're like, fuck you. I want everybody in there to have a criminal record, or at least to have in some way provably been risking that, because that's arguably a better if you're not getting caught, but there's a lot of variables in that equation. But yeah, exactly. The point is that nothing about us without us. You can't build a fucking industry without us. You can't come to us and go, oh, we were wrong for persecuting you for cannabis, and we go, oh, you're going to end cannabis prohibition and liberate us. Oh, no. What we're going to do is we're going to grow weed. You're not allowed to, but we're going to grow weed, and we're going to sell it to you, and you're not allowed to consume it anywhere. But if you own your own home, you can consume it. If you own your own home, you can grow it. If you're lucky, and you can afford it, you can pay a fine in public venues, and just it's a tax. But if you're poor, you can't access it. It's this just fuckery of a binary system that they've created, where for the haves, oh, here you go, sir. You are a good tax-paying citizen. Thank you for supporting the cannabis industry, sir. Whereas if you're a poor person that can't, participate in that same thing, you dirty criminal, you skunk junkie, you druggie. Do you know what I mean? You lay about lazy. So they managed to have this split personality, almost schizophrenia, that is, we keep all the propaganda of the past 80 years and blame it on all the dirty lower class people that we don't like. But oh yes, all of the good aspects of cannabis, all the medicine and all of the industry and hemp and all of those fucking bullshit gentrified words, that is then espoused to this middle class people. And we've just witnessed it, like I was saying, what they've done for 10 years of legalization. They've shut the fucking bed. Yeah, there's 400,000 jobs in the US or whatever, but last year Colorado sacked off 10,000 of them. A third of their force just gone. Do you know what I mean? Washington, you're like, oh yeah, 1.4 billion in sales annually last year. Yeah, it's been 12 fucking years, and you still are not lawfully allowed to grow your own cannabis in your own home in fucking Washington state. Don't tell me this is what legalization is about. Colorado are only just bringing on board protections so you can't get fired for, too many C's. California, so you don't get fired for smoking cannabis in your time off. Do you know what I mean? We don't have the minimalist protections under these fucking systems, yet they have made all of this money, Chris, because as you're right, it was worth 3 here and 4 here. But where do you think all that money in the middle went? It went on their bonuses. It went on their fucking, oh, we're going to R&D this over here. This is going to go over here. Oh, the Caymans. Oh, we're going to move this over here. It's just a fucking extraction and asset stripping of our culture, while they stand in front of us, pissing in our face and saying it's fucking raining. It's bollocks. Sorry.
Got some more good numbers for you, Simpa, to add more fuel to the fire here. Very nice article by MJ BizCon. Oh, it's a recent one as well, 2024. Thank you, Matt Lammers. So, according to data shared by Health Canada, the federal cannabis regulator, 611 million grams, roughly 1.3 million pounds of unpackaged cannabis was destroyed by licensed producers in 2022, an increase of 44% over the 425 million grams destroyed the previous year. So the theory that you can just produce as much cannabis as possible and you can endlessly print money with cannabis that nobody wants to buy is kind of that myth's well and truly busted at this point. Here's another one. In the first 6 months of 2023, another 265 million grams of marijuana were destroyed by license holders. Now, reason they're destroying it is because they can't find a seller for it. It doesn't fit any markets. It's not fit for purpose. There's no utility to the cannabis that's being grown. They just grow generic cannabis, sell to generic consumer. Yeah. And because no one's buying it, it was all going moldy. And if they wanted to sell it really cheap, that would then also devalue the rest of the market with regards to cannabis.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Remember
compounding effect of self-liquidation almost.
It's the fucking designer bag scarcity paradigm. Which fucking company was it? I'm gonna get fucking. I don't want to slander somebody. Potentially, allegedly, maybe it was Gucci, somebody like that. They were slashing their bags, so their returns and whatever else they were destroying them as a means to not provide a secondary resellers market, so it didn't undervalue it. It's the same if this isn't going to be new news to anybody, but diamonds, for example, and the whole creation of that industry and the idea of scarcity in a paradigm when we, basically create diamonds rather than mine them for all the other reasons like blood diamonds, etc. And it's a hell of a contentious thing to go into there. Quite an interesting Leonardo DiCaprio movie full. There's a lot of bullshit in it.
Blood Diamond, yeah.
Blood Diamond, the conceptual idea of it in terms of the trafficking, there's a lot of truth to how that used to work. Obviously, I think the movie's like 10, 15 years outdated at this point. But yeah, it's that control of scarcity, as you say. But when you think of those numbers, hundreds of millions of fucking grams, and you're just like,
Denmark, not much better. 145,000 kilos of cannabis were destroyed last year.
It just strikes it like this is the same.
Production isn't the issue. It's the policies and the ecosystem around the cannabis. If you criminalize the consumer, no one's going to want to buy your product.
But this just shows, again, the ridiculousness of this cognitive dissonance. Because they're going, well, hemp, we've got to get these hemp plants to produce more material. Hemp. Oh, it's not producing enough material, more hemp plants. And they go, cannabis, it's just a drug. It's like, you fucking idiots. The byproducts, it's cannabis though. We can't make stuff out of it. It's just cannabis. It doesn't make stuff. You've got a drug. It's a drug. The fucking it's an insanity to me. If it then can't be consumed as a sorry, it cannot be a consumable. It still has infinite other possibilities as a biomass. Do you know what I mean? And I guarantee you, actually, a lot of this is like California, where in 2018 I met a farmer. Not gonna get you in trouble, my friend. Had a very interesting conversation about destroyed packages, and so he explained to me the process of the the little tax form that they get, and they go, oh, this bud's failed this test. Oh god damn it! We'll have to fill in this form, and we get the tax back, and we can write this off, and it's gone in the bin, and nobody's gonna come and check in our bin. So this box, it's now in the bin. Do you know what I mean? You stick a little airline label on it and you post it somewhere. It lands somewhere and then they resell it on and you make the money off the back end. Like so much. Fuck it, I'll go on record. I would reckon you would literally probably be getting close to 50% of the major players, if not more, are actively participating in diversion schemes through destroying these products. You're seeing all this Cali weed landing in parts around the fucking world. Yeah, it's because they can't sell it in California because it failed a pesticide test, a mold test, a heavy metal test. Do you know what I mean? There was something that meant that it couldn't move in that market. Predominantly, anyway. Obviously, yeah, you can, as you say, end up with an excess of product and destruction for protection of a market, or even just manipulation of a market share. And again, another allegation. Although actually, no, I think they were found guilty, weren't they? UK supermarkets for colluding on milk price.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna stick it allegedly in here.
milk,
Who the fuck
meat,
knows?
everything in between. Yeah.
But yeah, I think milk. There was a major case in the UK where the supermarkets were basically done for price fixing for milk. I think it was a case brought by like a dairy and farmers union. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing as you say. They don't want it to drop below a certain price. Where I know personally, as a historic, cultivator of cannabis, the true price that you can get a gram down to, if you really know what the fuck you're doing and price your labor, I suppose, reasonably, then yeah, it's mental to watch cannabis as an industry become so hollow, so vapid. Do you know what I mean? So just an empty simulacra of what the culture actually is. It's not representative of our culture. Is coffee shops, it's clubs, it's field events, it's going around your dealer's mate's house, your dealer mate's house, and having to sit there for half an hour and random shit to the random people you meet because you don't want to fucking make it look sus. You know what I mean? Our culture is this kind of vehement hatred, but like a non-direct hatred and disdain for the police and for the establishment, because we have to fear how we smell anywhere we go. We have to fear how we look, what our eyes are doing. Do you know what I mean? We have to constantly worry about anybody being, to borrow a phrase, an Agent Smith that could turn on us in an instant and have our lives ruined. Do you know that forms a certain trauma bonding that we see in each other, and we recognize that criminalizing element, that persecutory mechanism that is inflicted on us by the system. I think it's what we see, like consolidation, to use a Darwinian word, in lab rats, and why they'll like huddle together and huddle together. Sorry, I'm thinking of fucking stock prices again. Huddle together and whatnot. I think we can do the same as cannabis consumers. Not that I'm saying we're lab rats, but we gather together as a way to feel safer amongst each other. We understand that discriminatory experience. We understand what it is to be vilified for arbitrarily, for so just. But for as stupid as something as literally, like I'm saying, a fucking smell.
I was thinking about a little thought experiment, Simpa.
Ooh, we do like thought experiments on the Simple Life. Hit me.
A bit of a visual of what decriminalization would look like.
Okay.
Lay of the land at the moment. So you can get private prescriptions from private clinics at a cost to you personally. If you go to the NHS, you may eventually be able to get one of the licensed cannabinoid medicines, Epidiolex or Sativex, or you can go to over-the-counter wellness stores and buy the products either online or in some of these retail outlets. What's in there, who knows? Where they come from, who knows? And do the people that are selling you those compounds know anything about those compounds? Probably not. But take it back a little bit. That leaves a good 90+%, I'd probably say 99% of people that consume cannabis or that are dependent on cannabis medicinally on the wrong side of the law still. So although we changed the law in 2018, a fraction of a percent of people have actually ended up getting access to those medicines, and a lot of the people that the law was changed for subsequently can't afford the private medical costs that are associated with this new medical cannabis that has been sort of separated or segregated from the rest of the cannabis that exists within the UK. So the majority of the cannabis supply at the moment in the UK is black market and self-reliant cannabis. And so the law change in 2018 didn't actually do anything. And so as a little bit of a thought experiment, what do you think, Simpa, would be the best next step in terms of deprioritizing maybe cannabis for the police at the very least? Or are there models that you've seen in Europe that you think
I think personally
best suit the UK?
This might start
Without giving the organized criminals too much.
This might start as a weird start of a sentence, but follow me. So we're seeing a rise of kind of right-wing extremist, arguably, well, quantifiably, fascist policies and ideology and dogma across Europe. From Italy, Spain, Germany, etc. For all we are seeing, obviously, progression of cannabis in certain places. There is inarguably growing political presence of some very not very good motherfuckers. But there is this seeming resurgence of nationalist interest. Brexit was built on this. And I think that in some way we need to tap into this. As I pitched to Tommy and to his dad, Jeremy Corbyn, the NHS should grow weed. 100% the NHS should be the only company. Fuck other entities like Curaleaf. Sapphire got a nice email the other day from Sapphire who are getting bought out by sorry, are now officially going to change their trade name to Curaleaf. So Curaleaf, I'm going to stick a massive allegedly here because I can't be asked having to go dig out the original source of it. And I don't think it's actually been fully published. I think there is an ongoing investigation, but there are the alleged links of the Russian oligarchy to Curaleaf, and the very dodgy money that has propped up the investment of that, and yeah, some of the fuckery around said acquisition, which I'm not gonna go into for my own personal protection.
Wow, I think that's a lot of cannabis companies as well, isn't it? Like, what was it all just a big money washing process to legitimize criminal funds
Well, if
through
if we look at
a nascent industry?
what countries have come on board since, yeah, you get odd ones bucking the trend like Thailand or whatever. But you look at some of these regions, these principalities, these territories that are coming on board, and you think, what do all these things have in common? It's history of money laundering. It's there is these corrupt systems that are basically going, yeah, wait, if we say with this, and yeah, you pump, as you say in the IPO, you put the money into that, speculate, you drive to a point, and yeah, there's a small gamble in whatever, but you control it through what do they call them? Like no sale clauses and minimum requirement sales, so that as you're trading, you're going to get a certain amount back. And as you said, it's just a giant washing machine. The washing machines have been the colloquial term we've all had for, I say we, the informed individuals have had for most of the hydro industry across not just the UK, but Europe and various other countries, that it is the acceptable front of a lot of dodgy things. That isn't to say that everyone involved is dodgy. That is not what I'm claiming. Nor am I making, a value or judgment or determination on anybody that behaves or acts according as such. I'm just stating, as you say, that direct parallel. But yeah, once you get up to the big boys, they are effectively owned and operated by the same huge hedge funds, investment and sorry, when they said vulture, venture, vulture capitalists that own and operate everything else. Do you know what I mean? The same people that own and operate all of the airlines, effectively own the ground bases, which means they also effectively buy into and own public transport in other regions. They create monopolies. It's as we said, capitalists are going to capitalize. And so these systems have just been devoured over the past couple of 100 years by these ever decreasing sized cabals of individuals that have concentrated their wealth, and the same has happened through cannabis. But in terms of back to your sort of thought experiment of legalization, I think that yeah, the first mechanism there is weaponize, kind of in a jujitsu kind of way, this nationalistic rise and fervor here in the UK, and go, all right, let's save the fucking NHS, frankly, our proudest institution. The Americans are on a 50-year trajectory to get out of fucking healthcare insurance-based healthcare systems, and yet we're flying the fuck into that because it's the same again. Institutional power and money that is sort of getting kicked out there wants to land in Europe and turn our systems of socialized healthcare into these private for profit means and mechanisms. It's that kind of Americanization of the world, and that's what's happening through the cannabis systems. But we could buck that trend. We're not a party to fucking Europe anymore. Obviously, we're part of the European Human Rights Convention, which I am 100% down for because we don't fucking have any human rights otherwise in this little island. You know, we're not a constitutional monarchy for all they say we are. We don't have a fucking constitution. We basically have the crown going, hey, well, we're determined what is going to happen in this little country. And we have the pageantry and the performance of parliament and all of that bullshit, but nothing actually meaningfully happens to represent any of the people outside of that little bubble. Do you know what I mean? And so if we can somehow get some politicians to back the idea of going, look, fuck all those other companies. We're all here. GW have shown that we can do this. British Sugar have shown that we can do this. You know, there are plenty of people in the Tories' front benches right now whose portfolios would reflect the fact that we can do this pretty well. But instead of then exporting it around the world and limiting their systems and again trying to create this global monopoly on what is what's medical cannabis, medicinal cannabis, prescription cannabis, etc. We just produce the best quality cannabis in this fucking country, and we get away from opioids, the same as we've been seeking to do for the past 5-10 years. As an official kind of edict, we are moving away from opioids, but we're not moving towards anything. Whereas cannabis is the best fucking pain suppression tool that we have. It provides conscious pain relief, which in a world of unconscious people is fucking a revelation right now. Opioids turn off pain and you just continue to fucking hurt yourself. You don't rest, you don't meaningfully connect with that pain, you don't humble yourself before it, you don't heal within it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas cannabis turns it down and it's there, but it's out the way and you can get on, but you're still aware of it. You still have to build your life with it. You still are able to challenge it and take it on. The opioid is the ultimate fucking maintenance drug. Cannabis is the antithesis of this. It is a seed you can plant at home and you can forever grow your own healthcare. Do you know what I mean? It's a different revelation, and I think that's where we could lead the world. Would you could yeah take all that big data, take it all from all the people that we're selling to, because we've been producing it to GMP or EU GMP to pharmaceutical grade. Even what a fucking buzz phrase that is. It doesn't mean fuck all. Speaking of oxymorons, but to that highest grade for everybody, and that be sold to the dispensaries, to the clubs, to anybody else that wants it anywhere. And that same is what is provided in the hospitals and through the NHS and the healthcare systems. And like I said, the profit from the external goes in and subsidize the other access. But once we kick out these companies that were charging, what was it, like 800? I'm trying to get the number. I think it was £800 for paracetamol. Remember that whole scandal from a few years ago? If we get rid of that mechanism that is bleeding it dry and replace it with this nationalistic Britain first, to again very lightly borrow a phrase, ideology, or not thought, belief. This patriotic belief in rebuilding the country and overgrowing this system, I think we would show them an alternative to this corporate capture and rinse repeat, fucking pump and dump mechanism that you've clearly edified us with your demonstration. I think you're on mute.
Done it again. I saw something. I've seen this quite a few times pop up on different conversations, podcasts, bits of media. A bit of a discussion around the sort of declining morality of the UK and just of Western society. How do you think that the cannabis industry is more moral now than it was in 2018, or do you think it's also declined along with that wider trend of people feeling as though society is less moral, people care for each other less?
I think, yeah. I think I've spoke on the podcast about this. I couldn't tell you what episode for you guys to actually go back and look at it, but I'm sure some of you Korea viewers will be aware of what I'm about to say. I've got my throat. Sorry about that. I call it like the festival effect. So it's something I observed because I used to spend my summers, I'm probably going to go back to over the next few years, actually, to be fair, attending various music festivals of all different sizes, all different creeds across the UK and sort of the devolved kingdoms. And there was a universal sort of archetypal behavior in certain individual that would behave in a certain way that I observed across the board. And it's kind of the middle class, petty bourgeoisie, very, what do we call them now? Like liberal Democrats, social liberals, these kind of hybrid kind of individuals that come in and
Campaign
go.
communists.
Yeah, again, to borrow a phrase, I'm actually just trying to speak to some. That's a different anecdote. Well, anyway, um, they go into this environment, and all of a sudden, once you get past the security, and it is a game. It's not a game, but it is a game about getting your drugs in. They all know 90% or a large percentage of people are trying to get drugs and illicit substances and things they shouldn't into there, even if it's just a bottle of wine hidden in a hollowed out bread.
Yeah.
Or do you know, we're all trying to get around the fucking
Yeah.
arbitrary limits and restrictions that are not there for our safety, but to ensure their profit margins. That's all it is. They're limiting your alcohol because they're going to fucking sell you alcohol. And guess what? That's what they do with the drugs. They limit your drugs because they're the controlling what's still inside. I've seen this shit. I have spoken to some artists, like some big names, and I have heard all kinds of stories about the drug surrender boxes that end up getting passed around at after parties and all sorts of shit, man. It's
Hmm.
different fucking reality. But my point is, these individuals make it past and they get through that game and and with their arrested development and their perpetual kind of immaturity as we live in with this emasculating 21st century, because we're not allowed to, a teenager with knife in teeth go to the woods and survive. Have that ritualistic experience. We're not taking mushrooms or whatever and transferring ourselves from this childlike state. There were men in their 30s, no offense to them. I still play with computer games every now and then. So I keep smashing out Red Dead Redemption or whatever. Or guys that play with Lego, I'm sorry, build model sets. Do you know what I mean? Or Warhammer or any of these kind of things that traditionally, previously would have been associated with an adolescence rather than an adult. Do you know what I'm saying? And again,
Yeah.
not judging anyone for it. So that kind of mentality, if that individual goes in there, going from a world of going, I would never take drugs. Drugs are bad. It's me holding a bag, by the way, a backpack, and marches sort of into the festival, and then they get the drugs and the ho, and then over their experience of that, they'll rob somebody, they'd steal something, do you know what I mean? They'll commit other criminality because, well, I'm taking the drugs, and drugs are bad, but it's okay here. And there is this kind of washing and breaking of the morality. And I think what has happened is that festival experience has now become life. Because if you're the rich kids and the influencer and you're in the club and you're sniffing coke and ket, and you can afford to pay off the bouncers, and you're like, mate, I've got 100,000 fucking followers. You don't want to kick me out of your fucking club.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've allowed the dickheads, and I'm gonna say it, I fucking like drugs. I do a podcast, sorry, every week
Have
about how
drugs.
much I like drugs. But don't be a dickhead. Don't be a narcissistic, egoic arsehole about it. If you exhibit that behavior, regardless of what you are doing, consuming, or who the fuck you think you are, fuck you, frankly. You are the bane of society. And in what that is what we're seeing is this main character syndrome, this
Mm.
infection of ego, this hubris of individuals of it's me and mine. It's the John Locke's manifest destiny to go to American politics and this kind of principle that we're taking this land because it's undeveloped and we're more advanced than the natives. And God isn't stopping us. It's
We know better.
manifest. We're manifesting our destiny. That's what is I feel is happening, and it's happening at all levels. And yeah, part of that is to do with the huge proliferation of cocaine, because yeah, coke will do that to you. You could be anybody at any sort of whatever, have any like be a short person with a height complex or whatever, and then suddenly sniff coke and you're 17 foot tall. Do you know what I mean? In terms of what it can do for changing that. You add that with alcohol, and that's coca-ethylene. That adds a euphoriant element to it. That then adds a means by which you don't actually get drunk, but you do lose all inhibitions, and you end up in this cycle of being able to take more of each in your liver and your fucking heart. And I'm seeing it. I've got friends that at the age that I'm at now that are having heart troubles, bladder troubles from ketamine, liver trouble from
Mm.
alcohol, etc. And I just think that we don't have that sensible regulation of that space because we can't have an honest conversation with ourselves because the politicians sit there at the pulpit with their little bits of paper, jeering at each other, violently convulsing and spitting at each other about how drugs are the scourge of the earth, and then nicking off to the
Fighting
toilets and
politics.
sniffing
Yeah.
cocaine. You know, smoking, like as was found, methamphetamine at the Home Office. That's somebody's literally racking up and like, hitting a ball and then going into the institution that decides the outcome of drug policies in this fucking country. It's an absurdity until we can address that hypocrisy and honestly go, you know what? A lot of people like drugs. It should be the same as going like Krispy Kreme donuts. I personally don't eat them. I don't like them. I think they're overpriced shite. But if somebody wants to then consume that, by all means do it. But there's an anecdote in the movie, the documentary Culture High, I think it is. And it's Marcus Briggs, not Marcus Brigstock, the other one, Rufus Hound, talking about a woman that he heard of in his local town who was going and buying 2 dozen boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts a day and eating them in the woods, just out of town, because she didn't want to be seen consuming that many of them. But we can get addicted to anything. We can exploit and have problems with fucking anything. So to then just point at the people that are struggling with something and then go, that's the reason none of us should have it, while you secretly fucking have it and you secretly get off on knowing that you're special and supreme and somehow better than those people. And if you get caught or your kids get caught, oh, Judge, Your Honor, Jeremy's got so much potential in the world. He went to a good school, Your Honor. It's his first time offense. Yet the same offense and the same fucking kid from a working class background and a council estate around here. What do you think's going to happen to them? It's like I said, without that honesty, without that transparency, without people being as dumb as I am at times, frankly, of going, yeah, I like drugs. I'm aware my head is above that parapet. I'm aware that I risk my freedom and my liberty. But I do it so that I can live with my own fucking conscience. I do it so I can sleep at night. I do it so I can inspire in some way others to do the same, and that eventually, in the hope that eventually enough of us will stand up and it will be like, what's that thing? I'm Spartacus. The Spartacus, you know, when I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. And literally then the judge goes, you know what? I can't sentence you. Why? Because I fucking love coke, mate. I had some fat lines last night. Me and the missus fucking, we went at it. We were talking shit till 5 this morning. And then I was like, shit, I've got caught. And then I'm here all day fining you dickheads for drugs. I can't do it. Do you know what I mean? Or we're finding of these cops that are literally drunk on duty or taking drugs on duty. And it's like, I don't care. Frankly, I don't care. Obviously, there are elements and reasons that I should. There should be a certain level of professionalism or whatever. But the thing that I care about is the hypocrisy. That it has to be one rule for all with this, and that minimum. And if anything, it should be the same thing that's met. It should be like obesity. Drugs should be like obesity. You go to your doctor, and your doctor's watching and going, "Oh, he's put on a stone since I saw him last month." And he can, quietly go, Mr. Tasker, there's this, and it can point it out, and then see you in another month and go, I know I mentioned last month that you've put on this weight, there's this, and that's all they can do. That's all it should ever be, is somebody holding you accountable in that moment, a professional that you respect, that has that neutral opinion of going, no, here's the science and here's the fact.
Like smoking.
Exactly. But then they go, you know what? You're allowed to smoke that. It should be that doctor's recommendation. And to kind of bring us back to the prescription thing, that is killing me. They just say, oh no, we recommend vaporization. I've been back and forth now with 3 clinics and with multiple fucking policymakers about this thing of recommendation. Do I have the lawful right to refuse their recommendation and smoke my prescription? Or am I nullifying the terms of the contract by which, what's the word? Immunity is extended to me to drive my vehicle? Like, nobody will clarify this for me. And it's an absurdity. If we don't know the rules, how can we follow them? If we then don't know why we're following the rules, why should we have them? That's again not to say that in terms of what I'm basically saying there is all rules and laws should be in some way grounded in a righteous foundation. There should be a meaning for it. We know not to rape because rape is always fucking wrong. Do you know what I mean? That's not
Not for debate.
Yeah. Whereas this
still
and I, God, Jesus Christ, I would like to think in my deepest of heart and soul that the idea of trying to force another human into sexual activity against their will always be a crime. I want to live and die in that world. I do not want to see the reality in which that is not the case.
I'm getting off the bus at that point.
But getting off the bus, I'm taking the
Right.
driver. I'm taking the driver around.
Yeah, it really depends. Like
Jesus.
cultures around the world, other people see it as like, oh yeah, that's how I met. Like
And I get that in a historic sense,
common,
but
common
generally the world is moving
activities.
in a trajectory of the task of the stocks that I showed you, not the ones that you showed us. Do you know what I mean? There are a
Yeah.
few places really going backwards. The age of consent moves forward. You know, I mean, there are obviously, yes, some very controversial and contentious movements to pathologize pedophilia, hebephilia, and the other one that I can't remember off the top of my head, which, I mean, they are pathologies. That is not up for debate. Action upon them would obviously be a crime, and I believe, again, a crime in every single instance, because under the law, in no matter what country it is in, a child cannot consent. They cannot provide informed consent, so ergo they can't. If they go for a vaccination, they're not consenting, the parent is. You know, if they go and do something, the parent's consenting. If a child can marry at 16, they are doing it with parents' consent. It's do you know what I mean? It's somebody has to take ownership of that, and that isn't then to say that the parent has the right to abuse a fucking child. I don't know who would maybe misinterpret what I'm saying there, but you know, again, there are
Yeah,
certain
it
religious
happens.
tech. I know, again, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking of certain examples, and it's
Yeah.
hurting my head. But I'd like to think again, the arc of history bends towards the justice of the individual and the idea of the understanding. I mean, look, in the West now, we're starting to understand that people with ADHD, for example, we're already starting to understand rather that the neurological development of a male, predominantly as well, especially, isn't occurring until in mid-20s. They're now saying that basically with people with neurological development disorders similar to sort of ADHD, etc., that's closer to 30. And I would say I would attest to that, because it wasn't until my 30s I kind of felt like I woke up in myself. Do you know what I mean? It was like I was just always a passenger to my own
Mm.
existence. For every now and then he could grab the wheel or whatever, but I never in any which way was aware that there was a road, that there was maps. I could pull over the car and stop for a minute. Do you know what I mean? I could turn on the lights, and I didn't know anything about the fucking thing until that sort of age. So I think that, again, I'm not then saying we should lift the age of consent to 30. That's not what I'm saying either. Although I think socially, naturally, that's going to happen to us anyway. If we look at cultures like Japan and Korea, and we look at, their sex crisis, as they're terming it, in terms of the young not
Were there
having
no babies
sex.
born
And
in Korea last year? I believe
what?
that was a.
What?
I
That
swear I
could
saw a
that
statistic
Jesus
like that the other
Christ,
day.
that cannot be true.
I saw somewhere, I was looking at the population
Um,
statistics for Asian countries and just around the world. One nation didn't have a single baby born. I mean, I'm
that just
pretty sure it was South Korea, because a lot of the countries are facing a bit of a population collapse at the moment for that reason, that no one's having kids and no one's reproducing, basically. The average, I think 50% of people over 30 haven't had a kid, whereas once upon a time, by the age of 18, 20, everyone would have been married, having kids. What?
Oh, so it's not like, obviously, not having kids. I think it's adjusted rates. So Korea's population dropped, declined 0.08%.
Yeah, I'm certain I saw a statistic as well that by like 2060, there won't be any South Koreans left because no reproduction, basically, full stop.
What's the
2080, maybe.
there's a graph. I can't remember what it's called. Do you know the population graph? I can't remember what it's called to research. Uh, I need a fucking my own Jamie. I need someone to
Jamie
be
pulled up.
pull us up. Population. Let's try projection. That might work. Oh wow. Um, so with scant immigration, South Korea's total population is expected to drop from its current range of 51.75 million at the start of 2024 to 36.22 million. Why is that not good? Why is it? When? It's not giving me a year of when that's going to occur. That's what. This is from CNN as well. This is really badly written. Oh Christ, no! It's saying that the the population of Korea in this year, 2024, is going to drop from 51 to 36 million. That's enormous. That's a level
No
not
babies are being born. The
a
baby
level
boom's
not seen
over,
since
and no one's having kids
1977.
anymore.
Wow. Similar demographic declines are being reported across several other Asian countries, including Japan and China. Which is interesting, obviously, because China was holding its what's its word?
China's in a
Its
bad place as well.
propaganda. Yeah, I mean, they were holding their propaganda for a long time, but
One child policy, and then
didn't take a
now we've got
genius in
no
the
children.
90s. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So
everyone I know that's my age, unless
no one's got kids.
I'm sorry for how this sounds,
Yeah.
unless they have a certain religious dogma or something that was installed in school age or something, and they accidentally get knocked up, and they kind of and they choose to not. I mean, yeah, it's more normal for the people I know to have an abortion than have a child. Like, and for people to react like this is gonna get me so sensitive because we're using the word abortion, but it's the correct fucking medical terminology. Fucking YouTube. But yeah, I can, and I'm not going to obviously, but I can think of a lot of women that I know that have had abortions recently. That is just like it's not. I'm saying that it's easy in terms of the decision and what they go through. That's not what I mean. But to them, it's so much easier to make that decision than to ever consider having a child. Like it's just they can't see the same as the rest of my generation. We can't see 18 months ahead, let alone 18 years or 80 years for that kid to have its average lifespan. Do you know what I mean? I mean, shit, I feel bad enough for my cat most days. I can't imagine the guilt of having a child in this world when I'm as conscious as I am. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a lot of the millennial generation is we're aware, we're quiet, and we're turned off because we're apathetic. Because we were the analog generation turned digital, promised the fucking world. Gen X were offered their shit, and a lot of them got the opportunity. When their parents died, they cashed in and got their shit, and the markets were luscious. But by the time the millennials matured, there was fuck all left for us. Thatcher, who rose at the height of Gen X, destroyed the North, destroyed youth apprenticeships, destroyed, that intergenerational wealth that was slowly being built by the working class. And ever since, we've just been subsisting on fucking nout. I petered out. There was a fucking point to that, but what are you looking at? I can see you reading
Oh, I'm
something.
looking at some terrible
Go on,
statistics. Just
hit me.
there's almost a pandemic of single motherhood as well. 84% of all single parents are mothers, and 75% of that 85% have no savings whatsoever. So, like you're saying there about your cat and the worry around it, there's no.
It's the financial incentive. So it used to be. Do you remember the lie when they were doing things like Benefit Street and Benefit Scroungers and all these television programs and shit? And they were saying like it's these women, these malicious single women breaking up the homes. So okay, no, if we actually look into these fucking arrest statistics and shit and go, who's the majority of people going to prison? All right, it's men of breeding age. That is not to put it in the crudest of terms, but of men of fertile age. Is that a better way of describing it?
I'd say so.
You know what I'm trying to say, though. This just makes it
Potential
sound very
partners.
Mad Maxian and very crazy, and I don't mean it to. Um, but yeah, they're getting locked up for offences and shit. They're getting broken down. Then you've got the other side of it of now more people than ever are reliant on state benefits. Universal credit was a way for them to obfuscate fucking allowing corporations to continue to asset strip and profit from perpetual inflation mechanisms within product profit and industries, etc., while suppressing wages. The system is still geared up then that if you have a kid, you're better off being two separate parents in terms of the incomes you can gain. Because then the mother can stay with the child, get maximum input, then the father can either work and get maximum. And this is all through universal credit. Like I said, this isn't them gaming, air quotes, the system. This isn't anybody playing the system or anything like this. This is what they have forced the majority of the youth to do now. And it's like I said, the majority of Gen X never got their starting block. They're still waiting for their fucking aging boomer parents to die. There's a lot of millennials still waiting for their aging boomer parents to die. I suppose they're doing the silent generation or greatest generation. I forget which way it goes. But now you've got Gen Z, that the babies of Gen X, and they're coming in and they're so disconnected because they've only known the digital world. They didn't have playing outside in parks. Our generation was the last ones that were get back
The
home,
iPad
get back
generation.
home before the fucking lights turn on. You know, they're the last generation where the cops wouldn't stop you because you're a child walking on the street. Whereas now, everybody would be like, "There's a child! Stop! There's an unmanned child. Whose is this child? What are you doing?" Do you know what I mean? And it just adds to that perpetual arrested development I was describing before. It all feels so formulaic to deconstruct the individual human experience and remove us from these natural forms of progression and evolution and development. So I suppose in the longest way, to answer your earlier point, I think cannabis, along with all drug culture, is unfortunately feeding into this mechanism because drugs make you feel good. And feeling good, unless through introspection, metacognition, and really, sitting with your own shit, you start to huff your own supply. You start to believe your own crap, and you can end up in these feedback loops. And then you're sat in rooms with people at 4 a.m, just fucking stroking each other's egos, just not connecting in any which meaningful way, just in this fucking simulation of connection. And then you realize you maybe gone too far that evening. Maybe you're in the wrong place. That's what we've missed the the human trafficking, not the human trafficking. Jesus Christ, is it 24-hour party people? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Oh, sure.
There's the two movies. There's 24-hour party people and human trafficking, but I kind of mean both of them, but I don't mean the action of trafficking humans. But that connection, that the talking cod shit, I think is how it's described in one thing of there is a connective element to that. But if then, as we're seeing, I think these relationships being built on connection to drugs, access to money and wealth and influence, ultimately to get things to make you feel good, whether it's shopping, sexual attention, media attention, online attention, drugs. Like I said, it's all feels very an attempt to pacify and distract and obfuscate ourselves from the truth, which is we're all in the same boat, and the boat is on fire,
We're
and it's
all wretched,
and
sinful
it's going
people.
down. Yeah, we are no better than each other. We're all just shitting, smiling monkeys. You might have a nicer fucking suit, mate, and drive a much fancier fucking car, but you still shit every day. Wait, if your healthy bowels are, you'd shit every day. Do you know what I mean? You've still got to brush your fucking teeth. You've still got to take care of your hair. You're still gonna bald one day. You're still gonna die. Guess what? There's going to become that day where you fart and you shit yourself because you're too old. Do you
And
know what I
then
mean?
die.
We're all going to end up just being that small, crippled, waiting to die human. That enough is, I think, who the hell is it? Is it Alan Watts? No, someone of the same sort of vein says that enough should be enough to inspire us to treat each other well. I can't think which author I'm trying to quote there, but that should be enough to then go, you know what? I will treat that old person with humility and dignity because one day I'm going to be that fucking old person if I'm lucky to live that long. Because I've had a hell of a lot of friends that haven't been that lucky. But it's again that we should go down the lowest common denominators of the human experience. That Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not doing the Illuminati thing. Literally, it's a triangle. The lower base is your base resources, and all of them are universal. Without water, there isn't a human on the planet that will live. Without food, there isn't a human on the planet that will live. Without connection, frankly, there isn't a human on the planet that can live. Because again, I'm thinking like Desmond Tutu when he's talking of like a solitary human being is an impossibility. A human comes into existence because a community of two people create that entity, and then they instill in it its culture and they instill in it its their like worldview, and it comes through its experience through an epigenetical mechanism of interacting with its environment. It becomes a manifest entity, and we're losing that. We're just born to be cannon fodder for marketing. Do you know? And I say that obviously with Sensi Seed shout out, and I do love Sensi Seeds. We're all just walking billboards. Do you know what I mean? We're all just regurgitating advertising mediums. So we go off and we learn, and I say this as a podcast host, stuff from podcasts and whatever else, and videos and content, and we regurgitate it back to each other, and we're creating this
Tell ourselves a story, basically, don't we? It's like
hundred percent, 100%. Yeah, there's literally a quote by an anthropologist. I can't think of the name of, and it's literally she says we tell ourselves stories in order to live. It is the daily narrative. It is that voice in your head going, I'm the good guy, they're the bad guy. You know, oh, this happened because of this. And we define our reality through these narratives. And if we don't sit down and tell our stories to each other, worse, if we're not proud enough of our stories to want to share them with each other, I think we're fucked. Do you know what I mean? We're all the what's the word? What's it on Google where you go off and you're incognito? We're all just in an incognito browser mode. We're all VPNing each other, thinking we're like, rah, rah, and it's all public. It's, do you know, before, like the decency of, at least, I don't care if you watch porn. I watch porn. A lot of people watch porn. Porn is porn. But you don't sit on the fucking bus with it on like a fucking 14-inch screen. Do you know what I mean? But we're losing those barriers of
Yeah.
the, I see it as the breakdown of the social contract. Like, not in terms of it, there's an old, quite conservative kind of ideology around that. I'm not referring to that. I'm using it as a loose idea of like a loose term to describe the etiquette and unwritten rules that we have, you know, so especially it says Brits, you know, as Northerners, you know, we say, you all right, mate? You all right? You're not actually asking if they're all right. That's an acknowledgement, you know, there's nods and there's all these other gestural elements and actions and behaviors that we have that are kind of unofficial. So in that sense, it's the breakdown of that, of just the accepted behavior of going inside my house. I can be as crazy as I fucking want, but when I walk out on the street, there are rules. Do you know what I mean? And it's not then because why should I be suppressed? Why am I'm a repressed person? It's like, no, you've got to keep your dick away. It's just decency. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to then, I mean, free speech is one thing, but you can't shout bomb at an airport. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be certain, not limits, but, well, yeah, reasonable limits that are righteous and reasonable and correct and are self-evident, I suppose, to again steal a phrase, especially from our American brethren. But yeah, it's.
What
But
do you think tied to that loss of morality and cultural, social values? What do you think
I think part of it is the internet. And I don't say this is a funny duddy like fucking technology, bro. I say this as someone who's benefited the entirety of my life from the internet. I remember getting on at a young age. I remember obviously dial up and you're that noise and some fucker picking up the phone and me, fuck's sake, and watching, you know, for like 20 minutes. Oh, oh, I've loaded the image. Sweet. All right, next. Click back. Fuck's sake. Half an hour, load the page again. Like, different level of internet experience. And then you look at sort of what we've got now, and it's hypnotic. It's not just hypnotic, it's formulaic. It's designed to steal your attention at every stop. Every screen you look at is just behind it is people, even like you and I. What are we doing? We're trying to maximize the attention of our viewers. We're trying to push our content out there. We're trying to, you know, grow our platforms and our influence. And we're two dudes out of 8 billion. It's not just the companies anymore that are doing this. It's brand me. Do you know what I mean? It's that commodification of the human experience of our very labor in a way we've never really seen. And it's unceasing. Before you'd be your 9 to 5, and that was your restriction. You know, I'm Dave. Oh, Dave's in last row, fucking Dave. Yep. Dave's at work now, and Dave 9 to 5. They're right. It's funny, lads, stand up, look. There was a separation. This is what I'm trying to get to. Before there was a certain restraint, not oppression, not persecution, but an obligation, I guess, a privilege, a duty and a privilege to conduct oneself with dignity, with decency. And if one then acted a fool, I don't even say the word one, but you know what I'm saying, if an individual acted a fool and, you know, act out of line, consequence. I'm thinking, I was in my head, this is so fucking, like, it's antiquated, like 1800s, and, oh, so you spoke against the lady. I do say, like, take you outside and duke one.
Yeah.
But there should be that kind of thing. If two dudes then decide they want to go and have a fucking scrap hour thing, boom. Certain etiquette, same as like it is in hockey.
But do it like gentlemen.
One of them goes down, you're done, right? You're done. You don't need to come at me with a fucking knife, plot to murder my family and kill my fucking chickens on my allotment or some shit.
Yeah.
Very specific, because I saw that on a disturbing Instagram video the other day. But yeah, that we've lost that kind of ability to be humbled. It's not just to think, oh, sir, you've slighted me. I challenge you to a duel. Do you know? It's like even the guy that goes, no, you can't do shit. Do you know what I mean? You can be as offended as you want because you are taking offense. I have not offended you. I am incapable of offending you. You are capable of being offended by my actions. It's about responsibility of our shit. We're all running through life perpetually a perpetual adolescence that are continually traumatized and damaged by the modern human experience and just fucking shitting on each other. Just disgustingly getting our waste all over each other, literally, because we're incapable of sitting, holding our own and looking after and disposing of our own shit. Do you know what I mean? Most animals will organize a system of structure and will shit in a certain thing. Most intellect, like animals of a certain level of awareness, mainly obviously the great apes and the monkeys, etc. They will, but it just feels like we're not doing that. Like we're literally incapable of taking care of our basic hygiene, and then we're wondering why the streets are so full of shit.
Yeah.
It's because we've not dealt with our own stuff to then go, oh, that really has frustrated me, but it's not my place. It's not a thing. It's fine. I'm over that. Push. And we're all just triggered and reacting and screaming. Like in my head, I've got like the worst image of your blue-haired liberal and your worst image of your right-winged Gammonite. Just
But they're
screaming,
so similar at the
exploding with
same
rage.
time.
Dude, the bell curve becomes the same.
Yeah.
This is
It's a
what
circle,
it
not
literally
not a line.
100%, and we all rotate through it at all fucking times. If the wheel keeps moving, we all take our turn. There'll be that morning where in traffic you're like, "Oh my god, that motherfucker!" and you'll rage, and it'll pass, and it'll go. And I think that's part of the human experience. It's the distilled, collective emotional experience. There is something in that. I use the word of like akasha to describe the collective experience, the vaults of knowledge and experience. And this is kind of mathematically provable. There are certain events where I think there's 24, there's probably more actually at this point, but at the time there's 24 random number generators around the world in different countries. And 9/11 was one of the instances where all of them dropped out of random equation. So they stopped creating random sequences. So human emotionality physically changes systems, collective emotions. So I think that you go out and you cause that mess, your mess in one area, and then you affect 3 or 4 people, and they go off into that, and then that manifests, and it just mutates and metastasizes until we're all just cancerous, and there is no space to be decent to each other, and the body politic doesn't know what to feed anymore, in the same way as cancer within the human body. And so the worst aspects, the most pernicious, vicious, vile, criminal, underhanded elements of humanity start to take charge. And because they speak so confidently and fluently and with big fucking words, we go, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I say that as someone who talks articulately with big words and doesn't necessarily know what I'm talking about, but keep fucking talking. But you get my point. Do you know what I mean? We haven't the ability to listen to the quiet man, the humble man. Do you know what I mean? Or better yet, to sit quietly and to humble ourselves to listen to the voice within, because I guarantee you, your actual super ego, not your ego, will have a lot of things to actually say about who you are if you sit and listen to it. It's going to be uncomfortable and you're not going to fucking like it, but it will benefit you, your kin, your family, your friends, and the entire world for you to do it. And there are tools that we have for this. Cannabis is one of them. Psychedelics are, you know, more to the point, sort of entheogenic compounds allow this. They facilitate the dropping out of the default mode network, what we used to call in the old parlance ego death, for you to sit with who you are, and if you're lucky, without too much judgment or pain, be able to reflect on your decisions thus far, and in a kind of like using a computer as an analogy, turning certain settings on and off and change literally the structure of who you are.
Got some good statistics here again for you.
Hit me. We like the numbers. We like the numbers.
I'm going to go full spectrum and I'll preface some of these statistics before I share them with. Whilst I was doing my medical research degree, I was obviously researching all the wonderful benefits of cannabis. And I'll refine that. Cannabinoids, therapeutic opportunities, therapeutic potential, endocannabinoids, synthetic cannabinoids, benefits of drugs. But as you start researching medical research and compounds and actual therapeutic approaches to life improvement, you see that the consumption of drugs or medicines is not even, that's after the problem. That's almost the result or the end effect or the end of the journey. What leads up to the requirement of those medicines and drugs is what really has the impact on life and quality of life and health. And by that I mean food, what we eat daily, either negatively impacts us or positively impacts us depending on what we're consuming, whether it be filled with numerous chemicals, processed products, and maybe some synthetic ingredients in between. Quality of his sleep as well. There's all the statistics in the world show how much your sleep either shortens your life if you don't get enough sleep, ruins your recovery, increases the likelihood of cancers, numerous other conditions if you don't sleep and recover. Hydration, the disgusting amounts that people are damaging themselves through lack of hydration, lack of nutrients, and lacks of just general supplementation of micronutrients, macronutrients that are fundamental to life. Family and friends, and then your personal connections, that also has a significant effect on your health, likelihood of disease, likelihood of death, life expectancy. I'll go drop some stats in a second. And then also having a belief in God and a spiritual belief also significantly impacts your life expectancy and quality of life along the way. So in researching cannabis, and again, what the medical research world, medicine as a whole, is there to do is sort of sweep you up and clean you up once you've already had those negative effects on your body. Like they can't go back in time and stop you smoking that cigarette to prevent you getting cancer. It's there to provide solutions to those problems once they've arisen. But preventative medicine and looking at real medical research, the real progress can be made in trying to implement greater public health interventions so that people don't get sick in the first place, which is what the future shows, and what the, obviously there's all these new wonderful treatments, technologies, and innovations that are coming around, but ultimately if you don't need those in the first place, then that's the best position to possibly be in. And systematically what everyone's doing is destroying their health through eating crap toxic food every day, might not be able to afford it, fair enough, not sleeping at all, not drinking water, and if they are drinking water it's probably sugary or coming through tea or coffee or some other sort of substance. They're not just drinking and rehydrating themselves sufficiently. Not sleeping, have zero physical interactions with other people and zero sort of connection and excitement that way, and social nourishment, if that makes sense. And then having no belief in God, your spirit, the universe. That also takes years off of your life. And I was just going to rattle a couple of statistics off you, Simpa, because what pisses me off about medical research is we always look at solutions to problems, but not how can we prevent those problems from happening in the first place, like jumping upstream. And actually that would really solve the issue if we didn't have to treat cancers or create anti-cancer drugs in the first place. So even watching the news and watching negative news is enough to drastically reduce your quality of life along the way. So so the indirect effects of church, just going to church, we're looking at a reduction in alcohol dependence and use, reduction in smoking, an improvement in mood, and also an overall improvement in quality of life just by going to church. Go to church. That's one of the best medicines that you can possibly have, whether you're religious, whether you're not. Just going for the social.
I was just about to say, does it quantify whether there is belief or just attendance?
Just the mere social attendance of church.
It's just a sense of belonging, because I mean, like,
community.
Christians are very often, the Christians that I've met and experienced, very welcoming for all their dogma is obviously very isolating. I suppose it depends on what sort of sect of individual you meet as to whether they actually listen to their own words, which are literally like, forgive, understand, treat everyone as equals, etc. That then people are cool. I've met a lot of Christians that I'm literally like smoking a joint and be like chatting to them, and they're like, well, that's not for me, but I appreciate, the word of God, sir. I like entertaining conversations about I was gonna say theology there. That's always a word that winds them up. But yeah, different theologies entertain me. So I can see entirely when you observe those community gatherings and the spaces that they create. That, yeah, why wouldn't that? Especially
Cannabis
especially
clubs
as you get older, having that and exactly that the cannabis club would fill that.
or a sports team.
Mhm.
But again, it's very easy to fall into the, oh, well, I'm a Protestant, I'm a Catholic, all that sort of jazz. Followers of Jesus, followers of God. So that's church. If we then look at just general religion, let me pick my notes here. Belief in God and a higher power. Believers, on average, have a higher life expectancy of 6.5 years just by having some belief in God, whether you go to church or not. That pure belief will give you an extra 6 years of life.
Again, is that quantified as God, or like does it have to be a structured religious
religious
belief, or
belief
just like,
in
yeah,
general.
but what about like a spiritual belief? Is that
Spiritual,
equated in the same?
religious, yeah.
Okay.
Anything like that also extends your life. Loneliness, suffering from loneliness and not having connection is associated with a 50 to 61% increased risk of death.
Wait, isn't it? There's a study I remember reading, God, probably about 5 years ago, maybe more. It's equal to like 15 cigarettes a day.
I've
I'm sure
heard that
it was,
thrown around. I can't
something similar. I can't,
verify or
yeah,
validate that, but it's
yeah,
equivalent. I mean,
which is
51%
crazy when you think about it.
increased risk of death from loneliness. Pretty remarkable.
Is that again? Sorry, I
Insane,
just keep
really.
I just keep asking questions because I like to clarify data. I- Is there anything in that about sort of again another banned word that's going to hurt me on YouTube, suicide, or are these natural cause deaths?
Just all cause
Just
mortality
all cause mortality. Yeah,
right across the board. Yeah. So
yeah.
people that believe in God end up living longer. People that have connections and don't isolate themselves have a 50% less risk of death in general, whether it be from self-inflicted death or harm to your own body. So that's probably about 10 years you can add to your life just by believing in God and having connections. Watching the news or watching negative news or consuming information that gives you a sense of hopelessness dramatically impacts your quality of life expectancy, and overall health. So I haven't got a number on that specifically, but it causes a general sense of ongoing hopelessness and ongoing general worry. So anxiety and depression, cortisol, all bad for the body, all bad for your health. So the news also has negative effects. Let's go back to the spiritual belief. So there's consistent evidence showing a positive association between quality of life and just religiosity, spirituality of all kinds. The tribes in Africa that believe in, I don't know, the smoke god, all the different spirits around them.
Me too.
If they didn't believe in that, that'd be an extra couple of years that they're missing off of their lives as well.
Again, I think all of it so far equates to one thing, as you said. It's I can't think his book it was. I'm pretty sure it was The Stress of Life, and kind of the paradigm that was put forward there that, as you say, stress is a main modulator of cortisol. Cortisol is a main modulator of inflation in the body. Effectively, all illness, in the loosest sense, is inflammation. Sorry, in the body. Inflation is in financial inflation. Also has a fucking bearing on that. But yeah, so it's I guess the belief in anything. So do you know what's interesting is the false paradox of then being, say, an atheist, because an atheist is a belief that there isn't a God is still then a
A
belief.
negative
So
belief.
yeah, so like
Like a
I
negative
don't,
perspective.
but it,
Yeah.
but what would that have on the data? I'm thinking of someone like Ricky Gervais. Like he is an adamant fucking atheist, and as he says, like I only believe in one less God than you. What's the problem? Um, but I think that kind of the if there is a certainty there, it's about removing the stress of the uncertainty. So again, if you're like you were born Christian, like a big man in the sky, you don't really care if you're like, oh yeah, I could die in a car accident. Yeah, but it's cool. I'm going the big man. Do you know what I mean? You can do all kinds of things if you then believe that you have this
Well,
next. Do you know what I mean?
great point, Simpa, because it talks about then coping with adversity.
Mm.
People who do have a religious, spiritual belief, some sort of religiosity, when shit hits the fan, they're also better able to deal with that shit because they feel as though someone's looking after them. It's going to be okay. There's bigger things out there in the world, and my physical being isn't the be all and end all of existence,
Mm.
or I don't really matter.
See,
The physical world doesn't really matter. Money doesn't matter. Whether my house is there doesn't matter. That sort of adversity, or the stock market's crashed. How many millionaires have made £1 million, gone broke, and then become a millionaire again, for example?
well, yeah,
Would you be able to do that without a belief or some sort of spiritual energization in
I
some
would
way?
then imagine that even a belief in one's own self. So I guess to link it back to the previous sort of conversation about then for lack of a better way of phrasing it, the growing degeneracy in the UK, and this kind of like main character syndrome that's sort of happening.
Self-worship, in a way.
It's yeah, it's literally I am God, and I have had this experience innumerate times on acid. And I'm not saying in that I'm God, I can conquer the world or whatever, but the humble reckoning that I am but a fractal division of the collective consciousness of the one, the whole. That isn't to say I believe in a Judeo-Christian God, an Abrahamic sort of religious, masculine, human figure, or even sort of in something metaphysical, or in the gods of energy and nature, etc., or the ancestral worship of the past, etc. I think that literally, if there is to be anything that can be considered God, it is in the animated principle that pervades the universe. To, I think, borrow a Descartesian phrase, which is that the things that make life functional, that is God. That is it. And I think there's a really good analogy. I can't think who uses it, but saying like, if you're a good mechanic or a good enough mechanic, you can take apart your car piece by piece, put it on your driveway, look at it, put it back together, and it'll run. You couldn't, no matter how good you are as a vet or a surgeon, you couldn't take a
No,
dog apart
no.
piece by piece and then put it back together. We don't have access to that other thing. Life is God. In that's what I've come to from, well, frankly, at this point, I suppose thousands of entheogenic experiences, that I am just a distilled part of that. So I have, in my most depressive moments and my most distracted and alienated feelings, the same, to put that circle that we were talking about before. I am on one side of it where it's the most burdensome thing in the world. I am God, I am the last man alone with God at the end of the universe. But then on the other side of it, I am but God. I am the universe. Right? Do you know what I mean? It's this, and I kind of swing between it, depending on how my mental health is going. But ultimately, it's always with the humility, never of entitlement. God doesn't need to take. God shouldn't take. It's not. It's described, I suppose, in Chinese mysticism as wei wu wei,
Oh, yeah.
the middle way, doing, not doing. And it's so you participate in your
How?
life, and yeah, exactly
Yeah.
through Taoism, yeah. And so it's sort of moving through your life and seeking to achieve the things you're doing, but without then destroying and trampling to achieve them. Jeff Bezos, conquering the world to deal with the fact that when you had no hair, you didn't get many girls or whatever. You humble yourself. You go, where is the limit of my achievement? Where should I be allowed to take? What are the consequences of this? The most powerful men, through my own edification and my understanding and interpretation and learning of history, are the quiet, noble men. They are very rarely the men that take soldiers into battle, generals and people involved in warfare and politics and whatever else. They are quiet individuals that work together
Marcus
to
Aurelius is one of
collectively change the face of the world, you know? Yeah, Marcus Aurelius would be the pinnacle of that, I suppose.
You're the
And
world's most powerful man, no one to speak to, but you're self-reflective and
it's exactly
self-understanding and
to yeah, exactly, to
self-aware as well.
and I think that's what that higher awareness is. So I think if you then have that higher awareness of going, I'm of this certain flavor and variety of Catholic fucking dogma, um, I don't need to think about anything. Why would I ever need to think about anything? Oh, my dog died. God, you know what I mean? Oh God, you want to take me dog? Well, it's fine. I'll just get another dog because God wanted me to have another dog. Like you have always got an answer to yourself. Whereas one of the things I both despise sometimes, but also adore beyond measure about myself is the toddler in me that goes, yeah, why though? But why? But why? But why? Did you know what I mean? And I can't answer that with God. I've tried. I can't answer that with alcohol or with drug abuse or self-destruction, and self-isolation and self-harm and all the various other things that I've, tried over my lifetime. The thing that I found that have worked is a humility in myself, and it's gonna sound fucking, I suppose, very Christian in a way, acts of service.
Yeah.
Helping others, man. It is the humblest, nicest thing in the world. But I'm like helping, I don't know. I think one of the funniest times I can think of that popped in my mind there was helping my mate help his gran paint their living room. And it was like hundreds of quid getting these fucking quotes. They wanted this, the one that. I'm like, me and you will
Yeah,
smash that out. We'll have a couple of joints in the back garden, get it to keep making the fucking teas, job done. And the feeling of that, of knowing that, well, we could have asked for £100, you could have made this, you could, all of that is irrelevant. The fact that that then becomes irrelevant because the reward of that feeling is worth more than £1,000. You couldn't. It would be absent if you were to be paid for it. Does that make sense? And some people are going to listen to this and be like, "You what? You should be your time, money." It's like, no, there are some things beyond this that you've got to start thinking. And here's a good thought experiment for yourself and my audience and anyone at large that hears this. Tomorrow you have all of the money in the world and you are told that you will live forever. Eventually, there will become a point where you'll have done all of those superfluous, stupid, egoic things. What would you settle and do? That is what you should be moving towards in the limited time that you have in this life. Is the thing that once you've got all of the other fucking sensation and experience and whatever else, the thing that you would settle into eternity to do, that's the thing that makes your soul sing. That's the thing that you belong to and belongs to you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And that's
Whereas
the
there's the
best.
material and then there's the ethereal now. And I think going back to our conversation around morality earlier on, cannabis industry, everything in between, everything's very material at the moment. Everyone seems to have lost that, or everyone seems to be quite happy to exchange that inner peace and happiness for a material feeling of happiness that's temporary, dopamine related, but not ultimately fulfilling. And I think that's maybe what,
Yeah.
like you were saying with the grandma, if you're
Mm.
taking that money, you probably wouldn't have felt as good afterwards. Imagine progressively over time and throughout the course of your life, you've exchanged all those potential good things you could have had for money, and then you try and get that back through money. And so it's just like a little conveyor belt of different things. But again, the reason I brought these up, Simpa, is just like we talk, like the cannabis industry is meant to be built on medicines and improving people's health. But ultimately, it doesn't do the core actions and behaviors that would be conducive to improving people's health, which would be
It's
criminalizing them, not isolating them, creating more community centers. It's not just a cannabis issue; it's a wider social issue, I think, which cannabis
it's a
been
lack it's a lack of an understanding of, I suppose, two concepts, isn't it? It's the ability of cannabis to be a prophylactic, which is a dangerous word to the pharmaceutical industrial complex. There was the oft quoted interaction between, I can't remember which institution it was. It was somebody from Goldman Sachs and one of the medical institutions, and he was giving a speech, and he basically said that a customer cured is a customer lost, and that cures are not conducive to a healthy economy. So, as you always said, they are sticking plasters. They are, oh, you broke your leg, have you? They go, okay, right, what we're going to do is we're going to keep you on crutches for the rest of your life, and your legs are going to degrade, and then you're going to need these drugs, and then because of these drugs, you'll need these drugs and these drugs. And they're like, ching, we've locked you in for life. We can speculate on that potential market share, add you to the other millions. There you go. I'm going golfing in the Bahamas. Fuck y'all. There's that kind of side of it. And then there is this sort of understanding that health and wealth need to be separated. That there seems to be this belief that the healthy, as they say, frankly, most of it's lies. You'll have these fucking entrepreneurs on podcasts, like you say, going, I only sleep 4 hours. Yeah, I have 1,000 calorie meal a day, and I do, and they're perpetuating the most destructive elements of an illusion of what a thing should be, and asking others to sort of replicate this. And it's, as you said, it's a collective weakening and breaking down of this system. And I feel they need that because of the potential power of cannabis as not as a panacea, but as a treatment, because it is supplementing a system that effectively regenerates and heals the body. You know, we are amazingly adaptive. You know, you can get an incredibly deep fucking wound, and you keep it fucking, especially these days, you keep it clean, whatever. You're fine. Within a few fucking weeks, months, you've got a scar. But that system is rebuilt. You can sever tendons, nerves, break bones. You can twist things, have things severed, and we can put shit back together, and you can fucking heal. But it's your conscious action and behavior once you've been injured that heals you. And so it's that, uh, what's the word, like connection between the healed and the healer, I suppose, that's absent of this. And cannabis, in a way, and self-anoints you as your own healer. And I think that breaks this paradigm wide the fuck open, because it's not about making you a cash cow for life under that paradigm. It's about you advancing, as you say, your own health. And cannabis is a funny drug that when you start consuming it, it starts talking to you. Call me fucking crazy. Call me crazy. But that little voice in your head that says, you know what? Maybe I will go to bed tonight a bit earlier. Oh, maybe I won't have that extra like drink of wine. Maybe I won't. That little part of you that gets louder and louder the more you listen, that is trying to look after you. I think, for me,
Self.
yeah, it's self. It's accessing that the super ego, the part of you that is beyond this illusion and facade, this costume that you wear every day, this guise that you inhabit, and this caricature that you and of humanity that you perform every day. It reveals, as Bob Marley says, ourselves to ourselves. So yeah, I don't think, and
Can
again, we've had
we?
this conversation. Sorry, to finalize the point there is, as I think we've had this conversation before, Chris. I don't think cannabis belongs in the medical realm. I think ultimately, if it is done properly and in a well-adjusted society, healthcare would actually be all of the other things. Drugs and pharmaceuticals, that's illness management. That should actually be there for like, no, 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 we found this. You take this, that stops that forever. Boom, job done. Or what you need to know, that's done. Now we've turned it off. Add these lifestyle changes, and you'll never need the drug again. Because with the vast majority of them, I've had now a very close. What do you say this? Like one of my partner's family has just had a heart attack. I've had a very close friend that's had a heart attack recently. And I'm starting to do research on some of the drugs they have been told at such young ages they are going to have to take for the rest of their life until they die. And then going, wait a minute, if you actually supplement this with this and you did this and that, why are this in that would be necessary? Do you know what I mean? And then you look, oh, what's the survival rate of somebody when they're 20 years on the statins? What drugs do they start taking after that? What cancers does their comorbidity increase to? Do you know what I mean? When you really start to look into these things, as you said, it's almost
Slippery slope.
it's almost pretty
Uh,
psychopathic when you
yeah.
truly look at it, because I'm not the most educated of individual, but if I can spend a couple of hours and fall down a rabbit hole and come to a conclusion that modern, hugest air quotes, healthcare system is actually a funnel to a death machine, a profit-driven death machine, then, because that is, as you were saying before about the population collapse and whatever else, we need to fucking look at this. We need to look at the sex collapse, because as I keep making this fucking joke, I'm slowly, I guess, working on a stand-up bit here without even realizing. Watch what is happening with robots in Japan. That is the best litmus test and canary in the gold mine we have for the survival chances of this fucking
Mm.
culture. Because every time they make a new robotic and a new thing, a robotic design, a new fucking like humanoid advancement, and it's like, oh, we can now lift an elderly person and gently put them into bed and place this above them and on through these sensors and da da da. And you go, yeah, that company just got bought out. Why? Because they're gonna make sex robots with it, because the young people that can't interact with each other are going to spend 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand on an AI facial regenerative, like facial changing and fucking downloaded pattern, like so you can change its rhythm, its way it speaks, the way it engages to like celebrities and people that they've found on the street, than actually fucking interact with each other. And all of that is going to go there because, of course, why would it not? That's where the fucking money is. And those old people are not going to get that advancement. So we've got them talking about now. I can't remember which humanist it was describing it and was saying, look, we've got the technology and the potential to within the next 100 years make a human survive easy to 150. And that's before we start moving with the bionics and the fucking integrated
Mm.
biochemical, I can't remember the terminology for it. Basically, making us not androids, humanoids. Do you know, hybrids, basically, hybridizing us. So then when you go, oh,
Yeah.
you're 80, 85, oh, we'll cut your legs off and we'll Robocop you. Now you've got the running level of a fucking Oscar Pistorius on crack. That's where I think that we're sort of evolving to. Listen to people like Elon Musk, and I think, yeah, that boy's probably consuming quite a few entheogenic substances himself, if you listen to some of his ideas. But if you look at, what's that physicist? Is it he's Japanese American. I can't pronounce or remember his first name. Kakao, I think, is his last
He
name.
built the nuclear reactor in his house.
Yeah, like people like that, and they're like these futurists that are like, oh, in 50, 100 years, it'll all be good. And it's like, mate, if you looked out of your window, the ends don't justify the means. We don't do something, you ain't gonna have a lab to do your little experiments. There isn't gonna be a
There'd
population
be no
left.
society in the first place left over.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking of Elon, for your population worry, I think he's on what, 7, 9?
Yeah.
He's smashing them out. There's a lot of them, that
Plus
kind of
some
level of
test
class
tube
that are just
babies. Yeah.
so eventually, yeah, they're just gonna replace us. That is literally what is going to happen, and that's what they want to happen. Because again, if you look at the economics, the majority of the people that are choosing, not forced, but choosing to not have kids, are in the lower economic echelons, and that's not a consequence. Sorry, not what's the word? When two things collide and they are not a coincidence. Yeah, I don't believe that to be a coincidence. And so then eventually, it's. Have you ever seen the movie Elysium?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel that's where they're going. They want to build this, and they're just gonna fuck off, and then the Earth will just be um like a dock, an intergalactic dock for basically lassoing asteroids, pulling them
Collecting.
in, and think of the cobalt mines now. That's what I fear is our modern human experience. Is like, no, you want Elon's 10,000? No, then you're not. Do you know? Or if it'll be the nation states will devolve to corporations run by billionaires that have these four simulated wars, kind of like they do in the three nation states of 1984, all while they're just miners and using us, sorry, to mine these resources to build these giant fucking space dicks that they're going to go off and fuck the universe with. You know what I mean? It's insanity. And to them, yeah, a million lost is what's that? It's just a statistic. It's it's nothing real. It's nothing tangible to them. You know what I mean? You've got to think again without getting too into it with the current geopolitical situation in various parts of the world. But look into some of the people that are running the world. They belong to death cults. Their literal interpretation of their own tenets are that they can bring about Armageddon. And there are some powerful forces in this world trying to do that right now. So it's all a bit of a mental time to be a conscious, sentient human, even more so to be involved in a space that is trying to champion a resource that could eliminate the need for that scarcity, to champion a resource that could open the minds of humanity enough so that we could stop killing each other, that we could stop killing and destroying ourselves, that we could ask the eternal questions that all of mankind has been asking. Who are we? Why are we here? What can we do? Do you know what I mean? What can we do for each other instead of to each other? How can we better our reality? If we want to get out there to the fucking stars, the only way we should get there is if we get there together. I don't want to see a reality, and I obviously wouldn't, but I can't. It would be horrible if the only future of humanity is Elon Musk and 10,000 motherfuckers on his little spaceship fuck off and take off, and that's the future of
Live on
humanity.
Mars. Yeah,
No,
yeah. Couldn't do
no.
that.
Like, nah, we don't need to leave the earth. This planet is self-healing. This planet is self-sustaining. It's the only one left in the Goldilocks zone in a space where we'll be capable for at least the next 100, if not 150 years of getting to in terms of in the lifetime of a human being. This is home for the rest as far as we can see. We need to get rid of these fantasies and, like you say, deal with. I can't remember whose quote it was. I think it was Plato. Was it Plato who said, "All of humanity's, or I think he said, all of man's wars, come from his inability to sit in a room with himself." If we could choose to sit in that room, that quiet, darkened room, smoke that DMT, take those mushrooms, eat that LSD, have that MDMA, smoke that fucking weed, whatever it is that you choose to do that engages you outside of the normal you, where in that space you have to captain those waters. You have to explore that land, those high seas, and define who you are in that space. If every one of us sat and did that on a regular basis, fuck me, the world would change.
Self-scrutiny, Simpa. You must be insane. Self-accountability. Unbelievable. I was just
It is the only thing we are capable of, if anything.
I was just looking here, Simpa, as we've been talking about fertility rates and what have you. It seems the more developed and the more abundant the income and resources around you, the less fertility you have. So
Have you heard of John B. Calhoun?
No.
Some of his work's been is a bit controversial in some circles. I think more predominantly to the people who are terrified by its interpretations. He basically fucked around with experimentation of what he called like universes. So he was creating rat models. So he'd build these installations where rats could live together in these populations.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
And so he did the famous Universe 25 experiment. And so from that, we could sort of extrapolate that once a population arrives past a certain point, no matter the perception of what do we call it, like density, population density, once it arrives at a certain critical mass, regardless of the available resources, the society starts to break down. The breeding partners and the normal kind of hierarchical toing and froing for sexual partners breaks down. There isn't the imperative amongst the collective population to repeat having children. And then what happens is in the rats is the parental instinct then gets turned off the larger the population goes. So they'll abandon nests, they stop building nests, they start eating their young, they'll abandon their young. You then see sort of certain elements within the rat society, the larger ones start to hoard the food and guard the food. The then more meek ones become more effeminate. Homosexual behavior starts to ramp up. This again, I'm just talking purely on this academic model. I'm not again conflating necessarily with modern society. And as you said, this breakdown of desire, of drive, of function, the basic functions of the society fell apart every iteration. After 20 Universe 25, thankfully, he finally fucking stopped because, I mean, the dude's responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of, I think, well, the Norwegian
rat genocide.
dwarf rats. Yeah, like
Yeah. No,
it's,
I'd gonna have to.
but the idea of the concepts that were extrapolated from that, as you said, our human data in modern society belays this. And then when, as you see, you start to get away from population density, you then get more conservatism, more, I suppose, to my American listeners, more republicanism, more of this kind of traditional, in the loosest term, kind of values and this, I suppose I don't want to say regression, but a slowing versus an increase in progression on that is present in the opposite. Do you know what I mean? So the two sides seem to break from each other. These guys go, whoa, 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 we need to hold on. And these guys go, no, we accelerate. And then the vast majority end up laid in the middle, because there isn't really any representation. You're waiting to basically be radicalized by either side. And that's all the human experience has been in the digital age because of the nature, especially in the era of social media. We're so polarized. We're so set against each other for everything. I mean, think of that fucking goddamn dress. Do you remember the multicolored dress? And it
Oh,
was
is it
like,
blue? Is it orange? Yeah,
is
yeah.
it blue, black? Is it this, that? Is it
Yellow.
just, yeah, like, there's no wonder we
Very
can't.
easily divided now. I was just looking again there, Simpa. 100 million animals a year killed for in the name of science and research. And most animal studies are pretty pointless and useless anyway, and the data's very poorly reflective of
A lot of it is
quality of
just,
life.
again, no offense to you being a scientist and academic.
Lay it on
It's
me.
people keeping their fucking funding going.
Oh, you got
It's literally they wine and dine and they get these big boys with their money and they get them drunk and like, oh dude, right, we wanna find out if putting a frog in water and heating it up.
it.
Do you know? No, but you think like obviously that is actually I found out to be subsequently not true. For all we all repeat that a frog will hop out of the fucking water. It does has the receptors to determine this, and it will fucking jump out of it. Somebody actually went and checked this experiment, which I suppose that was only necessary to disprove the thing in the first place. But that like I said, the fucking manipulation of just making sure, oh yeah, I have to get paid 100 grand while boiling these frogs. Yeah, cool. And my mate who owns the frog farm, we're gonna need thousands of them from him. Oh, and Dave, yeah, he owns a lab, and it's just that's all it is. It's just all the boys. It's jobs for the boys. It's money and contracts for the boys, and that's what a lot of academia has become. And that's what I was saying about trust science, not scientists. And if it can't be repeated, if you can't openly show your data and you're working out, then I'm gonna be fucking distrustful of you. Sorry, you were gonna say?
I was just going to do a little. Your analogy there is basically the NHS at the moment. There's no health's gone out the window. If we wanted to actually prevent health and reduce the burden on the NHS, we'd start investing in preventative medicine and actually trying to help people be more healthy rather than pumping the numbers and getting more drugs and spending.
But Chris, people can get fat and now inject Ozempic and all these other wonderful drugs, Chris, and then they won't be fat anymore. And as long as they're not visibly fat, I don't care if they're healthy, Chris. As long as they're attractive, I don't care if they die sooner.
Sell them bigger clothes. I was just looking at I've looked at this a few times. Like when you break down the funding for the NHS, most of it, well, that's it. Obviously, there's wages, everything in between. The amount of wasted medicines that people get sent home with was in the billions. It was just like, oh my, to what end are we doing all of this? But
there's so many of them are coming from our own side of it, where people are then going to the clinics going, no, you have to have tried 2 drugs. So the people going, well, I know for 20 fucking years I've smoked cannabis and it's helped my depression. But okay, you give me these little citalopram tablets. I'll go waste a tenner and buy these tablets, sit on them for a month, and then go, doctor, this didn't work. Can I have another one? And then he'll go, oh yeah. And I go, okay, I'll spend another tenner. And I've just bought these 2 packs of drugs for no reason other than to qualify for you to sell me your fucking overpriced weed anyway. It's like you said, it's this exploitation at every level. It's what capitalism does. That's what its innovation is. That's what it's what's the word? Efficiency. It's seeking of efficiency is. It's a race to the bottom. It's not about providing best service.
right, here we go. I found it again. COVID alone was 10 billion, which is the same amount of expenditure as all of the prescribing across the UK, 9 billion. Staff costs, 71 billion. The poor junior doctors won't like to hear that.
Because think how many hundreds is it like 100,000 plus people work for the NHS?
Yeah, exactly. Huge wages. Lots of people and lots of money. 17 spent on procurement, 32 billion. So wow. We spent 322 billion less than we should have between 2012 and 2022 apparently, but there is a big push at the moment to reduce the amount of prescriptions that are going out there that are unnecessary, which I like to see, which is very positive. But I've digressed slightly from my initial points, which was for the viewers, for the listeners that are still going. Ultimately, cannabis, as great as it is, isn't going to entirely dictate the quality of your life. There's all of these other factors that you can control that are free, that cost nothing, that people can't sell you, that they're going to make your life so much better than a drug, a medicine, a potential treatment. And obviously, if you're dying, there's not many things that can be done. But the whole point of medicine and health is to make sure that your quality of life before you require the medical interventions is longer, greater, more enjoyable, and people actually enjoy their time on this planet rather than hating it, taking it out at each other, causing wars and fighting all the time. And all of that information is out there for free. We've put some of it onto the interweb now through CannabisScienceTraining.com, where we're trying to make people more aware of their health, be more intelligent around their health decisions, look after themselves, treat themselves more kindly and more thoughtfully. We're not taught this in schools, unfortunately, though. We get told about our fruit and vegetables, but that's about it for the most part. And that's still laughed out of school when you get there. Everyone goes for their chicken nuggets and chips at lunchtime. The stock market, as we've clearly shown for cannabis, isn't reflective of health or the positive impact of the industry in any way. Most of the time, again, we've talked about people exchanging money and physical material things at the expense of life, quality of life, and just your overall well-being and health in the process. How that's kind of tied to society and the quality of society as it stands at the moment. And then as well, what we can do to potentially start improving some of that is building more communities, having more conversations, having more friends, interacting with each other, treating each other with respect, with kindness, with health, with well-being, and obviously fueling ourselves well as well with food, hydration, and sleep at the same time. But no one's going to sell you that. No one's going to market that to you because it's not sexy and they can't charge you money for it. So,
hey, I mean, it's
cash in on the free health, 3 years of life that you can get by having some of those spiritual investigations that are going to probably help you out, interact with some of those people that are again going to add to your quality of life, speak to those friends that you've got, that you've worked hard to build, and lovely people that you've met. Maybe don't smoke if you don't have to, vaporize where possible, and just be more autonomous and self-reliant. I think overall is the grand view of what we've been talking about there, Simpa. We've pulled on a few strings. And then my final talk is mandatory drug testing for politicians. That's what I'd like to see. If they're happy for you to be drug tested, you to go to prison for having drugs in your system.
I mean,
I don't the politicians want to be drug tested and not have drugs in
I would go the other way and be like mandatory drugs for politicians.
It's already been taken. It's already happening.
Yeah, but if certain drugs, it should just be like, all right, MPs, it's the third Saturday of the month. Everyone's got to get together on the Commons. We're all going to have mushrooms. All right, Lords, hold hands. Come on. Do you know what I mean? Kumbaya. No, but it's Westminster in terms of the block of Westminster is within what they call London City, which is basically a mile square of the old London. And then in that is Greater London. That each one of them is a layer into itself of established hegemony and power and control and dominance. And it, like I said, at the center of that is those 650 parliamentary representatives, and they are serviced by, I believe last time I checked, 12 subsidized alcohol selling institutions. So with all their restaurants and bars and their side little bits and whatever, 12 spaces that they can each go and just get piss mauled. As we've sort of spoke of before, there's been quite a few investigations by several of the British tabloids that have found various drugs within them. And I can't help but feel what I think, what the world would look like if at least two of those were like a cannabis dispensary. Like this is MPs, because there's still now the Chancellor has the lawful right, and I think it is the only example by which a sitting and active politician can consume alcohol while conducting business. Is the Chancellor, while giving the fucking budget, is allowed, is it port or sherry? It's been a
Oh,
while
sure.
since I found this loophole. A glass of this, whatever it is, this particular thing is of alcohol, to wet one's whistle while they're up there at the dispatch box speaking for so long. But that then you can infer from that that then basically they can be drunk to make decisions. So it's like, okay, then if they could be stoned to make decisions, they ain't gonna talk with the same fucking certainty. They can lie because they've had a couple of fucking little lines and a couple of pints and they're like, oh lads, and they're just
Or
chatting.
over
It's boys in the locker room, and then they
Yeah.
get out there, and it's like a fucking skit from like the Ali G movie. And it's this gang warfare back and forth, and they're throwing up like gang signs in the most poshest way, being like, eating blood, eating. Like, Winchester, Winchester. And they're just shouting out the fucking schools and the country clubs and their fucking secret economic alliances and policy groups. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. It's repugnant. And it needs to be fucking dealt with. And so, yeah, frankly, I think those people should be forced. You're in there for 4 years or whatever your elective term is, once every part of your term, like every 4 years. You've got to have this fucking experience. And I'm not saying, like a huge ayahuasca experience to go shit yourself in the woods, but you should have to do this thing, even if it's not necessarily as an entheogenic. They were trying to build now. So I think me and Dennis McKenna spoke about when he had him on the podcast, of like digital systems to replicate these experiences. So then you basically you have what you used to call again ego death, or you have a protracted period where you are not in your default mode network. You have a state of active consciousness and awareness where who you think you are, is there, and you are here, and you get to dominate. That's why ketamines become so popular, because for those that can't or won't want to develop that kind of muscle and that awareness, it just fucking knocks you out. You have a K-hole experience where your body, and you're like looking at your body and you and going, is that me? Holy shit, is that what I think and do and act? And you can again tap into that. And I think there has to be something in place like that humbles these 650 individuals, because they dictate the lives of 65 million people. That math is insane, and they're led by one person. Do you know what I mean? Is Joe Rogan always argues, like, we shouldn't be led by one. The math doesn't make sense, and this isn't to say then we can have a billion representatives. There has to be other systems. I mean, nature works these out. Like say deer, they found with American, Christ, I can't remember. Was it pronghorn deer or whatever it was? One of the subbreeds of American deer, that when they were observing them, they were still operating under the illusion of like alpha males. And so they saw the big bucks, like the breeding bulls, and they assumed that, they're going to dictate this shit. When the herd needs to move on to a watering hole from this food source, they'll dictate. The herd will go, oh shit, the big boys are going, we better all run along. And time after time, these studies observed, and it's the same with many other animals, that a majority democracy. The animals would look at each other, sort of constantly, they're engaging in a non-verbal communication. And then once the 50 up past a 50% majority had kind of voted in one direction, pointed in a direction, that's where the herd moved. And so humans still kind of operate like that. If you think of, the 100th monkey paradigm or the 5% argument of, getting to that critical mass that then it becomes through, I suppose, as Sheldrake would describe it, like morphic resonance, that it becomes intrinsic in the behavior, the manifest behaviors of all of the creatures, through this kind of connective mechanism.
Crucially, those deer didn't have phones that told them to do all of these conflicting.
Exactly. They're not manipulated and tricked at every point. That tree is a manifestation of beauty to them, whereas nothing is a natural aberration anymore to us. Few of us live anywhere near anything that is created by an intelligence that isn't us. And I say that, and then look at the room. Look at the average room you're in, listener. Other than that, maybe houseplants that you may have in your home, everything else is the product of human engineering, human design. It's all right angles and squares and straight lines, and just it's unnatural and unnerving, and it just further removes us from the natural world. Whereas, yeah, as you said, they are so obsessively connective and connected that that herd doesn't need to go, is everyone eating? Do you know what I mean? They know enough that, all right, 50%, we know that then the people that needed the food most, they'll have taken that time to eat it most. And it's so we're working out like as a mass, they need to move so that everyone's got enough food, but then not long enough that people would die of, thirst. They also then have to communicate to each other about predators, about seasonal changes, about weather, about very complex things that you think of the mechanisms we describe to each other, they intrinsically have a connection to, because as you say, they don't have the illusion that humanity operates under, what was once, books even, and all of the written word and linguistics and all of this other stuff that, yes, helps us, but it's thinking and cognizance should be or is classified as a sense. But we've got so obsessed with thinking, we can't separate it from being. We literally, when somebody stops thinking from them, they almost panic. They experience, like as the Japanese Zen Buddhists describe it, as satori, a brief enlightenment of just like, I was zoned out. I was daydreaming. And it's like, no, you were actually fucking
Midlife
absent.
crisis.
Yeah, you were absent from that thing just because you weren't. I'm supposed to be doing the 75 million things that the cues of my culture tell me to do.
Yeah.
So like, that's why, again, we should be the deer. Go back to the woods as much as possible. Spend as much time away from the machinations, manifestations, and the machinery of humanity. Do you know what I mean?
In all of the researching I've done, Simpa, and all of the studies I've read, fundamentally, the more westernized, synthetic, and modernized, and engineered, and let's say processed life is, the lower the life expectancy, the higher the rates of disease, and the higher the likelihood of death. Outside of the Western world, the disease rates are lower. Yes, there are more younger aged avoidable deaths, let's say infant deaths, things like that, because there's no healthcare. But you also don't have mass depression. You don't have mass suicide. You don't have mass rates of cancer. And it's very much the sort of human. The modern society is inherently bad for the human. Fundamentally, it's like the rat in the cage that doesn't have a nice playground to be in with all of the other rats. What was that? Rat Utopia or whatever the study
So
was.
like Bruce K. Alexander, yeah.
But if you're just in a sterilized white cage box, that rat's gonna pretty quickly become antisocial, kill itself, die, starve, and wipe itself out. And that on a macro scale, however you look at health, life, medicine, research, wherever you are, society as it's built at the moment is inherently bad for the human psyche, bad for human health, and we're aware of that in the literature and aware of that medically, but that isn't making its way into society. And through education, maybe we can spread some of that. And again, the trainings, the videos, what we're doing now, discussion around that. But the way the world's set up, or the Western world set up, is not good for the average person. It's causes the cancers, gives us the depression, makes us suicidal, reduces our fertility, reduces our ability to connect with people, and ultimately that's what's, I think, holding the world back at the moment. And it's pretty well documented and discussed in research. Obviously, they like to go by disease and identify all these issues, but most diseases and most issues that we have within the Western world don't exist in the rest of the unmodern world, let's say. And we've got very exclusive, very unique conditions specific to the Western world. And there's a lot that we need to do beyond cannabis, beyond psychedelics, beyond anything like that, that could hopefully bring us back to some of those universal, biological, natural, physiological realities. And well, that's the last 13 billion years of existence on planet Earth.
Mhm.
There's a lot of natural intelligence that we can learn from that's we're not currently learning from. We're just consuming and distracted by the funfare that is the modern world, that we're missing out on all of the real fun and quality of life and spiritual side of things as well, quite really. When it comes to, again, just church can add 6 years to 10 years onto your life, having a belief in the spirit and God. And again,
So
how
I
different would someone's life be? What type of life is someone that has that spiritual? Again, you can put it down to God, but it's like, what does that godliness lead to in the behavior of the individual throughout the lifespan of them? They're probably going to say no to drugs. They're probably going to say no to parties. They're probably going to have some more time invested with their family. They're probably going to have more connections, better friends, a better social circle. And so ultimately, all of these things stack to a better quality of life and a better outcome all round, and a longer and
yeah,
quality of
I
life.
think a better understanding of, I guess, the Oscar Wilde quote of, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Mm.
Um, that it's okay to stray. That is one thing that, again, in the very what should we call it? Vanilla flavored Christianity. One can be a sinner and can find redemption and be taken back by the flock. And I think that then allows for mistakes to be made by members of, they call them clergy. They've not, but not as in the priest class, because obviously I'm not going to touch that with the whole thing. Go watch the movie Spotlight, anybody that hasn't seen it. Very good fucking film, with Mark Ruffalo, that kind of, yeah, shines a light on the subject that I'm trying to avoid here because I've used the wrong terminology. But I think the people that belong to that collective group, as you say, a sense of belonging, a sense of ritual, a sense of what's the words?
The deer on
Continuity,
its own,
continuity,
basically.
consistency. Yeah, so I think you can
Deer with a great
extrapolate
cause
that.
or something.
Yeah, so I think you can extrapolate that for like men at the working men's club. Do you know what I mean? Obviously,
Yeah,
alcohol harms your
completely.
life and takes it off. But if
Yeah.
you're then just there with your 2 pints over the day, and you're looking after your health in your other ways or
Away at the
whatever,
factory all day.
the other elements add it. In the same way we talk about people that are mixing tobacco with cannabis, I'm saying not do it, but you're better off doing that than just smoking cannabis if you're going to consume tobacco, than just smoking tobacco. Because at least then you've got something that's a bronchial dilator, something that has got anti-cancer properties and a potential helping for the harm that you're doing. It's not going to obviously reduce, stop it, but it could potentially reduce it, or at least give you an option against. I mean, do you know what I mean? In the same way of like
I've
cutting
definitely
yourself and putting the
seen.
plaster on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what you were going to say there was like the studies seem to bore this out. Um, and there is something like you say too. We've seen it. Everyone can think of, yeah, with my gran, she drank fucking a pint of whiskey a day and she smoked 75 cigarettes an hour and she lived to be 125. Like there were those other
She
things.
had
I
friends,
think
she had family, she ate well, slept, had a great
exactly.
life,
And
laughed,
more and
enjoyed
more.
herself.
And the difference is a lot of the other people that went from before, like you said, they had reassurance of society. They belong to the ultimate thing, to like the Blitz, post-Blitz generation. If you were British, I'm British. We're all. Do you remember the veggies we had to grow? Do you know they have a? Whereas now there isn't one generation. There are 8 billion members of a different generation. You know what we were saying before about product me, or brand me. That's what the internet and everything has done to us. Like you said, it's turned us into solitary islands, 8 billion island
Mm.
nation states,
Mm.
trying to sign treaties, trying to work through the politics of all of this shit. And we're just not capable. There are things that I can do incredibly fucking well, but there are many more that I cannot do well at all. And I have to, with humility, go to others that can do better and be like, this, and many hands make light work. And I think if we can reconfigure society back together, as you say, by um addressing first and foremost. I've got two 19th century writers in my head that are, or 18th, yeah, 19th century writers that I'm trying to get the quotes. I'm trying to massage these quotes into my talk here. That we have to, with humility, come back to the realization for what, as Dostoevsky described as, um he said that every man thinks of changing the world, but no man thinks of changing himself. And so we have to recognize the humility. There's a Robert F. Kennedy quote that I can't quite think. I think he read at it was the eulogy that you read for Martin Luther King, and he's talking about like the culmination of the events of the members of a generation, manifesting the change and form the very nature of that generation. And then I was thinking of the I Am documentary, Tom Shadyac, and talking about G.K. Chesterton and his response to an essay in I think it was the Times of London, asking a question, what is wrong with our society? And GK wrote in response to it, I am. And he was obviously trying to obviously make a literary point. It was quite artistic, a very on point, but the meaning of it being that we're all what's wrong with society. If there's
Words
anything,
and
it's
also,
yeah, and we are.
yeah.
If there is anything right about the world, it is me. If there is anything wrong about the world, it is in me. Do you know what I mean? I could go and seek and spend my time just obsessing over the beauty in the world, and guess what? I will find it in spadefuls. I will drown in it. It'll become my entire life. It'll encompass me and become me. The same is true with, as you were saying before, of watching and obsessing over those news channels and trying to learn about, this conflict and the history of this and the complex socio-political and economic situations over here. I've been at both ends. I will continue to fluctuate violently across that spectrum because I think that is the quintessence of the human experience, is this endless, ceaseless drive towards knowledge, awareness, not in a fixed sense to kind of pin the world together and cease time, but to watch like a flower form and fall, to watch nation states rise and fall, to watch when a house gets built. We all obsessively watch a road get put together or a field get plowed, these things that catch our attention because they are transformative. We want to recognize that we are but the process, but our ego locks us in this sense of going, I am now, and there was always now, and there will only be now, and I want now. And it's that
And I am
constant.
the way I am, not that I can
Yeah,
that or
as I'm sure most people will have heard from their, quite arseholey mates
Irish.
this year of going, I'm gonna say I'm a cunt, but at least I admit it. You know what I mean? That kind of dickhead. It's like, no, if you're aware enough to recognize you are that, you're aware enough to do something about it. Because the people around you, I guarantee you, they are tolerating you more than they actually want to be around you. Most people are friends of convenience, of geographical location, as you say, because few of us want to actually commit the time to building those connections, to building those relationships with others that actually mean something. I will travel and quite regularly do, 8 hours in a day to see some people sometimes because that connection is meaningful. Sitting in their presence, feeling them, our hearts synchronizing, our intentions aligning, our actions reciprocating, and it's a wonderful experience, man.
The material and the
Mhm.
ethereal. That's the trade-off, and Western world's very much material at the moment and lost that ethereal, that spirit, that
Mm.
the value of the individual. It's all now the value of the thing out, external stimulus. That's the.
I think
It's
we're
been
moving.
very. It's been a very philosophical little discussion, Simpa. I think we've covered. We just discussed everything, really, haven't we? Just talked.
We have we
Lots of cheese.
extrapolated it out, and I think it is
Cannabis opens up many avenues. It's just the start of a big conversation around many other issues, and I think cannabis points
100%.
out cannabis, drugs, and
With
that sort of
the psychedelic or
discussion.
entheogenic kind of renaissance that we're witnessing amongst drugs, regardless of how co-opted and captured it becomes by this capitalist system, they're still sat high on mushrooms. They're still
Mm.
tripping on LSD. Even if it's them microdosing it and increasing their productivity and they're making the bottom line better for their business or whatever, drip by drip, drop by drop, gram by gram, ounce by ounce, these compounds are eroding the ignorance, the bigotry, the fucking stupidity of the human experience and reconnecting us to ourselves. And like I said, I never need to agree with you or even hear from you or spend time with you to know that you deserve to manifest and act as you within confines of reasonable and righteous laws, as spoken of before. And anything that I take offense from what you do, that's for me to work on my lesson to learn, not for me to, fucking self-righteously attack and destroy you for your actions. I think if we can get to that level of a world, fuck me, that'll be beautiful. That's the festival day-to-day life I want to see, not the mechanism of, criminality and of I suppose to use a religious word, the sin of these individuals manifest in these temporary spaces.
Maybe that's an opportunity for Product Earth North.
Set the standard, set the standard. We do some good
Set-
events up here in the north, yeah. So quite a few people can attest to that. We've had a good few.
A religious, spiritual, commercial, and industrial, socially focused activity.
100%. Well, it's all so intertwined.
Outdoor church.
I
I was
like
going to
it.
say, Simpa, you're a very loving person, very wise person, and very, what did I say? You have a great passion for the world and other people, but I can tell that, well, it's people that disappoint you sometimes. And I say people, certain self-absorbed people that
Mm. I know people
cause
can
that
do.
sort of they rub you up the wrong way, but then also they need people like you to keep them nudging them in the right way. So it's all
It's
symbiotic in a nice way.
exactly as I said before, that I probably learn more from those that irritate me, those that cause friction within me, than those that I sit with in comfort. It's easy to connect with someone joyfully. I know to some people that may sound very difficult, but once you can get past yourself and your own self-doubt and your own self-consciousness, it's easy to connect with someone, to be vulnerable with them. It may take a minute to find the right person, and you will be hurt by the wrong people. Says Bob Marley says, we keep quoting War Bob. Everyone's going to hurt you. You got to find the ones worth suffering for. And yeah, I'm grateful for those opportunities when I can learn and be humble from those people. That, again, as I said before, that if I am offended by it, it's something in me that I must change and learn. It is not about them. In the world that I want to see and I want to fight for, and I don't want to die for, but frankly, I'm prepared to. It is where they would have the same rights that I would to manifest my unique and wonderful self, to be protected in whatever weird and wonderful way my humanity expresses itself, again, within righteous, lawful means. So, yeah, I'm enjoying growing older. I really am, dude. It's a weird thing because I think of again where I think of how angry I was when we first met. How angry I was when I first started in this space. I still have
What are you
that
angry about?
that fuel. It's still there, but it doesn't dominate me. It doesn't, cause the veins in my head to pop anymore. It doesn't make me so angry that I literally need to go to the wilderness to scream, to sleep in the dirt for periods of time to get away from humanity. I now choose to do that for different reasons. It's not out of self-preservation. It's now out of self-discovery. It's now out of growing and evolving and moving forward. Again, not through the egoic thing of what can I get from this, but if I can better myself today, that means I can do better tomorrow. And just, as you said, being softer and easier. And I think, yeah, this has been a wonderful podcast, and I think we've covered some wonderful subjects, and hopefully, I think a lot of people will get a lot from this and recognize that it starts at home. It starts within. That if you are trying to do the thing. As I admitted last week, which I admitted for a while, I've been struggling with tobacco. I've been smoking tobacco for about 8 months, but I'm now, what, 10 days clean? 10 days clean. You know what I mean? It still sucks every few hours. I get it, and I have to consciously sit and do the thing and sit with the discomfort. But if you can change your perception of it, that thing that before would drive you to be violent, aggressive, screaming, I'll hold up my hand because that has been me in the past. It then becomes a fire, and you go, oh, this is a challenge. Rise to it. Be conscious of it. Don't try and run from it. Don't try and pacify it with another drug, with another form of escape. Sit with it, and you will understand that it's that circle. It isn't the bell curve, it's that circle, like you said, and your perspective changes that pain to pleasure, that unbearable weight to, some reps. Do you know what I mean? You can train yourself in every environment, in every moment. There was a political activist in America, I can't pull the name out my arse, and he said, look, they can only ever imprison your body.
Mm.
You imprison your mind. I think that's probably quite an apt place to
Yeah.
to wrap things up. I have thoroughly fucking enjoyed this. This started very manic with how much caffeine I'd had earlier, but yeah, I think we've settled into
Become
a
cathartic.
beautiful, beautiful podcast there, brother. I think we've covered some great subjects.
Thank you, Simpa,
Thank
mate.
you.
I admire your admiration for humanity, and I share your frustration for the few humans that treat humanity like shit. So
Hey, I do
yeah,
sometimes. It's
keep at
intrinsic
it.
within us, but we have to
Yeah,
rise
yeah.
above it. Yeah.
And also, final thought from me. Um, yeah, as for cannabis industries, if we can all be better people, the industry will be better. And Simper and I think, yeah, we're trying our best to make it a better place and improve all the issues that we see, solve those problems, ask those questions, irritate those, irritate the irritators, and yeah, build something beautiful, more inclusive, and also something that's improves the whole setting for everyone and makes the world a nicer place. So thank you, Simper. Your
100%.
podcast's awesome. Keep doing what you do. You're a lovely guy. You're a great dude, great man, great human, and yeah, lots of people love you. So you're appreciated. Everyone likes you. I like you. I love you, Simper. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It's great, spontaneous little call together. It's been great hanging out and talking about politics, philosophy, health statistics, animal research. What else have we done? Stocks.
Yeah, we've covered so much, but I think this has probably been one of the most positive podcasts I've had
Oh,
in a while. Not to say that they're negative, but yeah, I think a great way to start the year. And I think honestly, yeah, if we can get more people to be accountable, as we're saying, and to take care of their own sort of health, then if we change ourselves first, then we very easily change the world, frankly. So yeah, thank you for your time, Chris. I'll include links to everything, or as many things as can be relevant. I
all
think
the
I'm
links.
on probation till the end of February. Then I can put links back up on YouTube without worrying. But yeah, I'll include what links I can below. We will definitely get you back on within the year. We're not going to leave it another 18 months. We'll definitely get you
We'll
back
see you
on.
soon anyway in person. You'll be down. You'll be down walking
Yeah,
up Rosebery Topping or something in no time. So.
that's a good shout. It is a good time of year. I'll drop you a line. We'll get that arranged. But yeah, thanks again, Chris. I will let you jump off and enjoy your evening. I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping, or do the wrapping up, and yeah, gonna get off myself.
Awesome, Simple mate. Take it easy, bro. Hope the happy tobacco withdrawal. Take it easy, mate. And
Thank you.
yeah, have a beautiful evening. Thank you for me, and see everyone soon.
Yeah, peace and love, brother. Take it easy. I will catch up with you soon, brother. All right,
Thanks,
peace.
dude. See you later, Simpa. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Well, there you go, folks. That was Chris Tasker for the third time on the Simpa Life Podcast. I think that was our best recording yet with me and Chris. That got very, very philosophical. I got very sort of in depth. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot. There's a bit of a manic start there. I mean, you can see I consumed quite a bit of caffeine. Some very large coops of coffee were consumed, and I think at the start of the podcast there, you could see how caffeinated and hyper I was. But Chris, being ever consummate professional and having quite enough experience conversating with me and experiencing my manic nature, was able to, ride that wave quite well and quite efficiently. And I think, yeah, we produced some wonderful content there. And yeah, hopefully inspired y'all, hopefully give you some food for thought, as they say. And yeah, you guys can sort of go away from this podcast wanting to, change the world by changing oneself, to better the world by bettering oneself. I think, yeah, if nothing else, if you don't change the world by changing yourself for the better, at least you get a better you. The people around you get a better you. You might get a longer life, definitely get a healthier life, get a better quality of life. Why? You'll be able to handle whatever happens in life. I can't obviously determine what's going to happen geopolitically in the future over the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. But yeah, if you look after yourself, you will be ever more able to manage whatever it is that comes. So yeah, I was going to say defense starts at home. which I'm pretty sure is a British war fucking term. Who the hell knows? As in from World War II. Who the hell knows? Anyway, yeah, that was good waffles. I'm not going to waffle on here. I'm just going to thank my guest once again, Mr. Chris Tasker, for taking the time to jump in the hot seat at the last minute this week. Thank you, brother. Greatly appreciated. Um, yeah, check out the links below to cannabis science training, to Green Shields, and I say that global cannabinoid solutions. I hope, fingers crossed, I've been able to include the links below. Like I said, YouTube have currently got me on a 3-month probation for, daring to try to, help people by allowing them to get drugs tested so they don't fucking overdose on adulterants. How terrible of me. How dare I? How dare I? Yeah, anyway, that's thank you as always for you, fine folk, for taking the time. I suppose 3 hours at this point for sitting down and enjoying this podcast. So yeah, really appreciate if you made it all the way through in one setting. That is quite impressive. Well done. My hat off to you, my good friend. Yeah, if you really enjoyed this, please do give us a like, share, subscribe, rating, pardon me, a thumbs up or whatever it is you do to show appreciation on whatever platform it is you are currently consuming this podcast on. Yeah, check us out on all social media platforms at The Simpa Life. Check out simpalife.com for more details, exclusive blogs, articles, and other content. You've been wonderful. We'll be back next week with somebody. It'll be awesome. You'll enjoy it. I'll enjoy it. And it'll be fucking great. All right. Peace and love, you beautiful bastards. See you next week. Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome. That's not what I say. What the hell do I say? My brain's broken.
Personally, yeah, it's gonna take a few bumps along the way.
That was bad. That was brain's not working. What the fuck did I say? Yo, how's it going, folks? Fucking hell.
Nice.
Ah, I'm okay. I'm okay. You can't tell that I've spent
I think
the hours prior to was recording this was me just getting violently high while working. Yeah. And back in the room.